City News Time, 9 o'clock.
Number one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Thursday, September 29th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 7 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 6. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Construction work at a property on Deschamps Avenue has uncovered what could be human remains. City News received a tip from a listener last night. Now police confirming this morning they were called to the 100 block of that street in Vanier yesterday afternoon. Police confirming what was uncovered could be human remains. Their investigation is ongoing. City News Time, 9:01. Now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Overall, plenty of sunshine. Some clouds linger in the morning, but that's about it. The high today, 14 degrees. Tonight, clear and quite cool, down to 3 for the low. And after that chilly start tomorrow morning, it will get warmer up to 18 and lots of sunshine Friday. For today, the high, 14.
And right now, 7 degrees in Ottawa, 6 degrees in Smiths Falls. It is one of Ottawa's oldest fairs at 166 years young. That is set to take place this week, and that is the annual Metcalfe Fair. Several community transit organizations are calling on the city to implement free transit ahead of Election Day. Horizon Ottawa and Transit Riders Ottawa are among those groups. They say events like Canada Day and Remembrance Day have free transit, so should the Civic Election Day. It was the final eco debate of the election season. Candidates for mayor sharing their vision for Ottawa. For that story, here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
Lots of climate promises have been made on the campaign trail. Catherine McKenney says Ottawa has to limit sprawl.
We can do intensification in gentle ways, and it can lead to better, more walkable, more compact neighborhoods.
Brandon Bay says if we argue that transit users should pay for transit, then road users should pay for roads.
Increasing parking fees to pay for better road maintenance and public transit, retail spaces in transit stations and possibly libraries to pay rent to the city and grow some more money that way.
And he says it's time to get creative at City Hall. But a big topic last night was property taxes. Bob Chiarelli has promised 0% rates. Mark Sutcliffe and Noor Qadri both say that's a pipe dream. Now, McKenney has promised 3%, but will reveal their fully costed plan next week, as will Sutcliffe, who wouldn't commit to a tax rate just yet. Chris Curries, City News.
City News Time, 9:02. Now, if you're heading anywhere in the city this weekend, you can expect heavier traffic than normal, some detours, some delays, all because of the major bridge replacement getting underway over Rochester on the 417. Here's City News reporter Prushka Gopalkista.
Now, this is not the first time that the 417 had to be closed. Back in August, both sections of the highway had to be shut down to replace the Booth Street Bridge, and that closure caused many traffic delays and detours, which the city anticipates will happen this weekend for yet another bridge replacement. Closures will start on Friday, which will extend from Metcalfe all the way to Carling, this to replace a bridge running over Rochester Street. While the section of the highway and other surrounding streets will reopen early Tuesday morning, the city says Rochester between Gladstone Avenue and Aberdeen Street will remain closed until the following Monday. But for now, the city says drivers can expect traffic delays and detours over the next several days. Pirishka Gopalkista, City News.
And Hurricane Ian now downgraded to a tropical storm as it moves over Florida. As a hurricane, though, there was a trail of destruction in southwest Florida. This is one of the strongest hurricanes to ever hit the United States. It has been drenching Florida Peninsula not only with rain, but also a strong storm surge. Ian could regain near hurricane strength after emerging over Atlantic waters near the Kennedy Space Center. That's expected later today. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's got the news and the views.
He's got views on the news.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Oh, it's Thursday. Kind of like a Friday. I'm not here tomorrow, but I'm all business today. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Since we're not here tomorrow, a lot of what we would usually do on a Friday morning, we're going to do this morning instead. So coming right up, He's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski, managing editor, Blacklock's reporter, document journalism. That's his specialty, document journalism, reading all the original government documents and government reports. So you don't have to. Going to the many, many government committee meetings, listening to hours upon hours of testimony and political bloviating to save you the trouble. And filing access to information requests because sunlight is the best disinfectant. All to report on the wild world and wonderful ways that the government spends your money. And from time to time, as we learned this week from Blacklock's reporter, the government likes to spend a lot of money on itself. Blacklock's reported this week almost $200 million in bonuses paid to managers in the federal public service. Almost $200 million in bonuses. Doesn't it sound like a great place to work? From home? We'll get more details on that and other stories from Blacklock's this week coming up just a few minutes from now. Then we'll be joined by our good friend and colleague Derek Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa, Rogers Television. You hear him on City News all the time doing double duty, and we're going to talk about some of the local stories that have been in the mix so far this week with a big focus on the municipal election campaign. Another mayor's debate last night. Candidates for mayor. It was, again, about the environment and climate change. Why candidates have to put themselves through 4 debates on this one topic is beyond me. Environment and climate change. You'd swear it was the only issue in the city. It's not. Some might argue it's not even the most important issue. But we'll have some of the highlights. You know, when you look at the calendar, as of Monday of next week, it will be 3 weeks until the election. Come Monday of next week, 3 weeks to go. And some people have been casting their ballots already in advanced polls. There's an interesting take from the Ottawa Bureau of Politico. I get their morning newsletter every morning about, this morning it's about our mayor's race. And it's reporting on how this mayor's race has divided local liberal heavyweights. That the Sutcliffe campaign has people working behind the scenes like Sabrina Grover ran for the Liberals in Calgary Centre in the most recent federal election. Sutcliffe's campaign manager. Jenna Sudds, former Canada area city councillor turned Liberal MP, is a Sutcliffe backer. So is Marie-France Lalonde, the former Liberal MPP, now MP, for the riding of Orleans. And then the McKenney campaign just scored Tyler Meredith. Tyler Meredith becoming a McKenney campaign co-chair. And, I mean, with that guy, you have about as faithful a Trudeau liberal as you are ever going to find. He worked for years and years and years for Justin Trudeau in the Prime Minister's office and worked for Chrystia Freeland as well. Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance. He just recently announced that he was leaving federal politics. And now here he is taking a deep, deep dive into municipal politics. It is seen as a huge score for McKenney. Politico reports they've been friends for a long time. But I guess this would be my question. If the McKenney image is supposed to be, I'm the outsider. I'm the one who's going to challenge the status quo. Well, nothing screams outsider or I'm not the status quo like your campaign co-chair just having worked as a senior advisor to 2 of the most powerful people in Canada. That really screams outsider. What's also interesting is that all of these liberals are lining up to support those two candidates, but not the person with the serious liberal street cred. You know, the former liberal cabinet minister at Queen's Park, Bob Shirelli. Derek Fage on that and more right after the 9:30 news, and also on the municipal election campaign this morning, Randall Denley at 11:15. Randall, as you know, has been covering City Hall for a very long time for the Ottawa Citizen, longtime municipal affairs columnist for the Ottawa Citizen. He also writes for the National Post. He had a column this week about the race for mayor. It was more complimentary, I would suggest, to the Sutcliffe campaign than the McKinney campaign, and then he was accused of being biased by Councillor Menard and the far left-wing socialist leader of Horizon Ottawa, who displayed a profound ignorance of the job of a columnist in the news media. Each week we go in depth on the big international news stories with the help of Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University's Norman Paterson School of International Affairs, because it's a complicated world. And today we'll jump right back into our conversation about the war in Ukraine. There is the mobilization effort by Putin. I guess you could call it a draft. Russian men of fighting age fleeing the country. Referendums in those 4 eastern regions of Ukraine, sham votes, very similar to what happened in 2014 with Crimea. And what happened to that pipeline? The Nord Stream pipeline. What is the likelihood that it was sabotaged by the Russians? Lots to cover there. Then there's the hard right turn in some recent elections. Sweden's right-wing parties recently made huge gains in that country's elections. And now Italy is also veered to the right with the election of Giorgia Meloni and the Brothers of Italy party. I mean, when you think bastions of conservatism, right-wing politics, Sweden and Italy come to mind. And Iran, where the protests rage on, and there was a sizable solidarity protest here in Ottawa this past weekend. Catch Professor Tepper's analysis right after the 11:30 news. For the Talkback Hour today, we're going to do a free-for-all. Thursday free-for-all, because we're all off tomorrow. We had some red-hot conversations this week about issues like climate change and carbon taxes. Phone lines were jammed when we revisited the Freedom Convoy here some 7 months after the occupation of Ottawa. If you want to get back into those topics this morning, just give me a call after the 10 o'clock news. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Lots of other news. You want to talk about the municipal election? I mean, we're all over that story. We don't usually talk too much about American politics, but my gosh, Joe Biden, President of the United States, he sounded like he didn't even know where he was yesterday. If you happen to be following that story, where's Jackie? Is Jackie here? Where's Jackie? He's 79 years old. Is he really going to run for a second term when he would be 81? We can talk about inflation and the cost of living or the healthcare system. It's all up to you because, it's a free-for-all. One day early on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
Focus better.
Partner better.
Sleep better.
Breathe better.
Love better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Everything gets better when you get active.
Hello, I'm Liz Dowdswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. In 2008, carbon monoxide, a deadly invisible gas, killed an entire family in our province. That tragedy led to a new law requiring homes with potential CO sources to have alarms. John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
Send them home! Get rid of them! Gentlemen, please. And so, this organ, which I regret I cannot name, because of the presence of these members of the weaker sex, who, although they are married, could not possibly endure...
Get them out.
Patience, Ginny. Patience.
Get them out!
Dr. McFarlane!
Mrs. Trout.
There's no place for women in a medical school.
Get them out!
If you do not bring this classroom under control, I am going to repeat every word of this disgusting lecture to your charming wife.
My friend Jenny Trout was not the only woman to face this kind of thing in medical school. But she would become the first woman licensed to practice medicine in Canada.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
We're in infinity. Hi, my name is Isabel. I'll be performing as part of Encore Ottawa 3. I hope you can tune in and catch it on Rogers TV.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter earns his bonus by appearing one day early this week. Managing editor there. Good morning.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, great to hear from you, Tom Korski. Let's jump right into this. This was your scoop, made the front page of the Citizen a few days later. Pandemic bonuses at $190 million for the federal public service. Please tell us more.
It's a bit of money, isn't it? There was over 16,000 of them. These are executives, top managers in core administration got a bonus. Some of them were pretty handsome bonuses. You know, maybe 5 figures, typically. My favorite was the agencies. We call them the 100% Club. Every single manager got a bonus last year. The Office of the Secretary to the Governor General, Rob, they're like a master race. Like, no one showed up late for work. Nobody spilled coffee on their pants. They're like Japanese robots. Everyone was perfect. They had a fantastic year.
The Office of the Secretary of the Governor General.
Yes. They had a great year. 100% bonus.
100%
Everyone,
bonus.
They got a home run every time they went to the plate.
Well, somebody has to arrange these $215 breakfasts.
Somebody has to. Those breakfasts aren't going to order themselves.
Yeah. 100% group included Office of the Governor General's Secretary, Communications Security Establishment.
Well, those are the spies, so no one's going to challenge their bonus, right?
Yeah. Economic Development for Quebec, Economic Development Agency, Southern Ontario, the Financial Transaction and Reports Analysis Center. Wouldn't you love to know what they do there?
Everyone was a Hall of Famer, Rob. Every single one.
If you donated to, say, a protest or something, the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Center. 100%ers. Everyone gets a bonus. And you get a bonus. And you get a bonus. And you get a bonus. $5.5 million, 23 other federal agencies. Because we have 23 other federal agencies, 95% of executives or more qualified for a bonus, including Heritage, Finance, Fisheries. Now, I love this. The Fisheries and Oceans Department, just as Fiona was barreling down on Atlantic Canada, they deleted the tweet.
Sad.
They tweeted that if lobsters wash up on the shore, don't go get them. Don't even think about going to get them. Just leave them there. As though this is the biggest thing that Atlantic Canadians have to worry about right now, as my parents are now into their 6th day without electricity, right? Yeah, the 95% club. There you go, right there. Foreign Affairs, Indigenous Services, Infrastructure, Justice, Public Safety, Public Works, and Transport. If you can put your pants on in the morning, you got a bonus.
This is the thing, Rob. How would you feel? You talk about Ned the poorhouse boy like people, objects of pity. How would you feel if you were the one manager who is among the 2% of the Department of Fisheries that didn't get a bonus? You say, what did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? Oh, my gosh. So let's follow up on our conversation from last week about the RCMP giving personal information about people who donated to the Freedom Convoy, gave personal information to lobby groups in the financial services industry, not regulators in the financial services industry, but lobbyists in the financial services industry. You've been doing some following up. What have you found out?
Well, this communication was completely unencrypted. It was an email, and the RCMP shotgunned this email to everyone they could think of. And they asked the people who received this unencrypted general email containing the Freedom Convoy blacklist to send it on, to tell the world. Ontario Securities Commission, we see, sent a form letter by email to members, said, check your client list, look for Freedom Convoy sympathizers, check your list. If you find a bad person, call Kelly Hughes at the RCMP National Headquarters. Kelly Hughes, here's her email, here's her ad. They sent it on the wind, Rob. We are unable to determine, but will over time, how many hundreds or thousands of people would have seen this blacklist of political protesters who were not convicted of any crime. It was really something.
Right. Again, regulators. Perhaps you can understand that because these were Emergencies Act orders. It will be interesting to see the time frame and how it coincides with the Emergencies Act. Maybe we'll get to some of that when the inquiry is eventually held. But we're talking about lobby groups. The Mutual Fund Dealers Association is not a regulator. It's a lobby group. It has people who go to Parliament Hill and want to sit down with politicians and bend their arm and bend their ears on policy and on statutes and bills. The Credit Union Association isn't a regulator of credit unions. It's just an association that represents credit unions in the country. These are lobby groups. A very important distinction to be made there, I think.
No, absolutely. Investment Dealers Association. But when you send these unencrypted emails, this is literally what a blacklist is. So you have this underground, and it's sanctioned by a federal police force. And if you're on that list, by the way, RCMP were asked how many charges resulted from this account freeze and this blacklisting. Do you know how many charges resulted, Rob? 0. There were 0 charges.
Right. Incredible. That's incredible reporting. Okay, back on the bonus beat. Tell us about the ink-stained wretches of the CBC. How tough do they have it over there at our public broadcaster?
Well, it could be getting tougher because there's Senator Percy Down, Liberal appointee in the Senate, is going to propose amendments to a cabinet bill. He wants disclosure, names of anybody who works at the CBC who gets paid more than a senator does. By the way, that is now $165,000 a year. Isn't that interesting? You know they don't disclose that.
No.
It is literally impossible
it's like a
to
vault.
find out.
It's like a vault.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yet there has been, for instance, over the years, submissions, evidence, piecemeal evidence that suggests, for instance, bonuses for top management of the CBC are 50% of base salary. Well, how much did all those bonuses come in through the pandemic? Over $15 million a year. Wow. Over the 2-year pandemic, it was $30.4 million in bonuses, while CBC management was pleading with cabinet, poor pitiful me, crisis, financial pressure.
Oh, yes.
Can we get a top-up to account for our declining revenues due to our shrinking viewership? Tough times, tough people.
Yeah. Yeah, must be great bonuses for those incredible ratings that they're getting for CBC television, like the National, for example, where the Toronto local supper hour news has more viewers than the National, by far, by many multiples. It's interesting. A little later, I'll talk about trust in the media with another poll that was released this week by Main Street that showed that close to 40% either don't trust the media or somewhat distrust the media. 4 in 10 Canadians. Another disturbing figure. Some polls recently have shown it to be actually higher than that, and closer to half of Canadians don't trust the media and think there's bias in the media. Commons Heritage Committee heard some testimony this week. The subsidies, particularly for the print newspapers, has something to do with that. Tell us more.
Absolutely. And those people who say they don't trust, mistrust, or believe they are being misinformed, are expressing a completely rational reaction, according to witnesses from the industry. These are not outsiders. These are people who work in the industry, publishers, independents, publisher of the Tyee, for instance, a Vancouver-based news website, been around for years. A former editor of the Calgary Herald, longtime newspaper, former CRTC commissioner. They're telling MPs, they're testifying in committee, the subsidies have provoked a crisis of mistrust, as one of them said. As another witness put it, the implication is that people believe that reporters are toadying up to cabinet. We always oppose the subsidies, Rob, and we do not take them because you cannot be independent of government influence and reliant on government money at the same time. It's impossible. My 2 cents, I think it is a death spiral for anyone who took a penny in taxpayers' money. They will never get their reputation back, and they don't deserve to.
Well, you're worth every penny I give you, Tom Korski.
Thank
I think
you,
my
Rob.
subscription is going to be up soon. I will renew. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye. Tom Korski, managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. Derek Fage on the municipal election campaign and more right after the news on City News.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
I'm Mallory, and I was walking home one night when an impaired driver hit me. He had been overserved in 2 bars before getting behind the wheel. If the servers would have called him a cab instead of serving him more alcohol, my life would be the same as what it used to be. I think servers play the biggest role in keeping us safe because it's up to them what state the person's in when they leave. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law.
$20. And Maggie, Mrs. Calabash, come into my kitchen. A quick mayonnaise, egg yolks, garlic, Dijon mustard, lemon juice, olive oil, immersion blender. Go down, come up. Voila, mayonnaise. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20.
Hello,
I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, September 29th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 8 degrees, and here's what's making news this hour. A construction crew uncovered what might be human remains. Crews were working at an address on Deschamps Avenue in Vanier yesterday afternoon, made that discovery, contacted police. They say that investigation is ongoing. 2 houses slated for demolition on Bell Street were damaged by fire last night. Fire crews received several 911 calls around 10 o'clock. One building in danger of collapsing. Hydro was called in to cut the power to the entire street because of arcing wires. That made it difficult, or more difficult, for the firefighters. 2.5 million without power, 14 million under flood warnings. That across Florida. One of the most powerful storms to hit the U.S. slammed ashore in southwest Florida. This is Hurricane Ian, now a tropical storm that is expected to gain strength again, though, once it heads out to the Atlantic and toward the Carolinas. Destruction of Fiona will be surveyed by the defense minister today in Atlantic Canada. Anita Anand on the work military members are doing in 3 provinces. She will survey that today. And a new poll shows 90% of Canadians asked say the cost of living has forced them to tighten their budgets. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News 1011 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Hey, Garrick Fage is here. Rogers Television, host of Daytime Ottawa. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
So we just have some breaking news here by way of the BBC.
Okay.
Queen's cause of death given as old age. On death certificate, it says, quote, Queen Elizabeth II died of old age. Her death certificate has revealed. Says she died 15:10 BST, so 10 after 3 Scottish time.
Right.
At Balmoral Castle on the 8th of September, which was 3 weeks ago today. The National Records of Scotland published the certificate today, documents signed by her daughter, Princess Anne. So there you go. Old age.
Okay.
Old age. Well, when you think about that, okay, so 3:10 in the afternoon would have been 10 after 11 here, and it was announced about 2.5 hours after that.
Right.
So you remember everybody scrambling to get to Balmoral Castle, and Harry didn't make it on time, and these kind of things. So
yeah, that's right.
There you go. That's the latest on that. Old age. No, nothing more than that. Like not heart failure or anything like that. So, yeah. Just wanted to bring our listeners.
Yeah, no, appreciate that.
Okay. Good week. Good week.
Yeah, it's been a great week, Rob.
Good.
I'm actually really looking forward to today's show. We're really focusing, actually, not just a few segments. The entire show will be on Truth and Reconciliation Day. So we've got a great lineup. Early on in the week, we had the artistic director and director of the Metahockey Farm. They have their Tegwagi festival that's happening at the farm throughout the entire weekend, starting with today's reconciliation dinner. I think there's still probably a couple of tickets left if anybody's interested in that.
Yeah, we had someone on from that yesterday. That sounds like, I think that's the event in Ottawa, by the sounds of things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've gone to a couple of celebrations at the farm, my family and I, and have really enjoyed the experience. It's a fantastic, and they're open year-round as well.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I was speaking with someone yesterday off the air who said you should really go there. You could spend hours there, apparently.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would say, if people are going, Probably expect to spend about 3 hours there. They just have some great. They have a marketplace. They'll introduce you to the Ojibwe spirit horses, which are just absolutely beautiful, and they have other experiences available there as well. And then on today's show, our first guest on today's show is Tim O'Lone, and he was an advisor to the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And he's got a very powerful story to share. I'm really looking forward to sitting down with Tim because he's really experienced some massive trauma and racism in his life. He was a member of the Canadian military, as well as, of course, being part of an Indigenous community. So he's really dedicated his life on engaging and educating people. And he's got 3 days worth of programming that's happening here in Ottawa as well. So I really encourage people to listen in on that. I think his story will really resonate with people and give people a better understanding of what many of our Indigenous people here in this country have gone through.
Yeah. Okay. So that's at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
That's right.
On Rogers Television. Yeah, great stuff. Okay. Last night on Rogers Television, people would have seen the final mayoral debate on the environment and climate change. But before we get to that, what just generally speaking, what do you think of the state of the municipal election campaign right now? Where is this race right now? And
well, I still think Catherine McKenney is the front runner.
Yeah.
When I drive around town, those are most of the signs that I see. That doesn't necessarily mean people are going to vote for them over, it doesn't. The signs don't really tell the whole story, as we know. And then especially social media, if people are following this election on social media, I know I probably sound like a broken record, but don't assume that somebody necessarily is going to win just because you see more talk about their particular platform and probably getting a lot more recognition online. But I really think Catherine's leading here, but things can change quite dramatically. So we'll have to see. I mean, Mark Sutcliffe, is running a pretty good race himself, and I would say he's second. I'm not sure that Bob Chiarelli has much of a chance, but who knows? I mean, there could be a vote split between people that support Mark and people that support Bob that could help Catherine.
Okay. Yeah. The how things work with the split is what I'll be interested if how much if say Chiarelli and Sutcliffe are fishing in the same pond for, say, a more, I don't know what you would call a more fiscally prudent way forward or something.
Yeah,
if that's the image that they're trying to project. Just how much of that vote is going to be split, and is Bob Chiarelli going to play spoiler? I still think that's the big question to me.
I agree.
Right now.
Yeah, we're on the same page there.
And I mean, we had 3 of the other candidates that are running for mayor, we shouldn't forget them on the show earlier this week. Mike McGuire's running an ad campaign on our radio station right now.
That's right.
And, they're very good ads, very well done, very slick. We also had... I
think you had Param Singh on there,
Param Singh.
Yeah.
Noor Qadri.
Oh, that's right.
Really impressive people, and they're going to get their own share of the vote, so it'll be interesting. Yeah. Whoever wins, I'll be curious to see what percentage of the vote do they win with, right?
Yeah.
So all of this is all up in the air. Do we really need 4 debates on climate change? Like 4? I know people, they're totally committed to this, and they're hardcore and they're diehard and all this. Come on, 4 debates. Come on.
Yeah.
4.
And the shame being that we couldn't do debates at Rogers TV. So I would actually rather see more general debates being done in the community that we could run on the channel, quite frankly. I mean, we just didn't have the resources or the space to bring all 14 mayoral candidates in studio to do that. So I would definitely like to see more general. I know for many, climate change is on top of people's mind, but there's a lot of other important issues that aren't getting the attention they deserve, except for when candidates go door to door or have an opportunity on City News or other media means to share their platform. But I think debates are very important, and it's a shame that we're we're not getting a more general debate with all of these candidates. And, the issue with, the climate change is that, we've talked about it so often, and we've talked about it through the last 3 elections. I mean, climate change was a big topic as well. And I think the frustration probably, and why you're seeing more activism behind it, is because not a heck of a lot, and people don't think a heck of a lot's been done. But each of those top candidates have put out their environmental platform. I know certainly Catherine and Mark. I'm not certain what Bob Chiarelli's look like, but I have a good idea of what Mark and Catherine's look like.
Okay. Transportation. So, there's a real distinction here that Sutcliffe is trying to drive home, that I'm not going to declare war on cars. Right. However you want to get around, we have to do a better job of getting everyone around, no matter how they get around.
And that plays to the suburbs and the rural communities. Right?
And that the McKenney campaign is way too focused on cyclists at the cost of all other modes of transportation. This $250 million 4-year bike plan, right? So this is about a minute and a half or so. This was one of the key exchanges from yesterday's debate. Let's listen here.
Okay.
Catherine McKenney.
Thank you. We need to give people a choice in how they move around their city. Sometimes people will need to drive. Sometimes they will choose to cycle. Sometimes they will walk, and sometimes they'll take transit. And often they'll do 1, 2, or 3 of those things all in the same day. It is essential that we provide that choice to people so that we can get them out of their cars and onto more sustainable ways of moving about.
Mark Sutcliffe, please go ahead.
So I respectfully, Catherine, I thought your answer was interesting because you said we need to respect, as I've said many times during the course of this campaign, we need to respect people's choice to move around the city the way they want to. But your choice is to invest $250 million in borrowed money in one form of transportation, prioritizing bikes over cars. And you just said it's okay for people to drive, but we have to get them out of their cars. So I'm not sure how those two things line up with each other. Going back to the original question, though, which
how is that a contradiction?
Because I think, well, I want to answer the original question if I can, but
okay.
I think that there are many people in our community, just to answer that, I think there are many people in our community who will not be able to use bike lanes, no matter how many bike lanes we have, will not be able to use bike lanes in February to take their kids to hockey practice or take their parents to a medical appointment. So I think we need a balanced approach to transportation, not to prioritize bikes over cars. That balanced approach should include cycling lanes, but we shouldn't put all our money into cycling lanes.
Not sure why the moderator's interrupting there.
Yeah.
There's no need for that. What do you think about that exchange?
Yeah, I mean, it really speaks to each of them coming from a completely different focus. There's no doubt about it. You know what? I actually covered Valerie Plante, who's the mayor of Montreal, and when she first won as mayor, and now they have a different system. It's a party system, but there's a lot of comparisons between what Catherine McKenney's doing and what Valerie Plante did in Montreal. When Valerie Plante had, ran in this past election against Denis Coderre yet again, you sort of saw, Denis Coderre as the business interest guy and Valerie Plante as, the climate change activist. And she made she made many bold decisions, just as we're hearing from Catherine McKenney. When I look at what happened in Montreal, everyone lost their minds. Oh my God, bike lanes, and we're going to shut streets down in downtown Montreal and businesses, and we're going to take away parking lots, and we're going to put in patios instead, and we're closing sections of St. Catherine Street, and people were up in arms. And then, quite frankly, a few years later, everyone was praising how, wow, look at how vibrant it is. People can get around downtown on bicycles, and with the street closure, it is packed down there. People, and I mean, now, the key here is they have a much better public transportation system than we do. It's easier for people, of course, with the metro system to get downtown. But I think this is where Catherine is coming from. Catherine, they are saying, listen, I'm going to do something bold. I mean, David Coletto called her campaign meek. I think it's bold. I mean, Catherine's going all in and saying, this is what I'm going to do. And, I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. She certainly talked about affordable housing and so forth as well. I mean, they are covering many other topics, but this is one of the main ones, and I'm starting to believe it might work for them.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know how much support it gets beyond Westboro. That's what I.
Well, yeah, that's why I said, Mark is really looking into the suburban votes and the rural votes.
Sure.
And there's no doubt that speaks to his platform, right? I mean, you talk to I did the debates, of course, and those rural candidates, what was the first thing on their agenda? And that was fixing roads.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Lots of calls this week on the show about drug addiction, homelessness issues in Lowertown, Sandy Hill, Byward Market, that it's out of control.
Yeah, I listened in on those.
I mean, you live in Vanier, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's gotten worse, Mark. There's no. I'm
Rob.
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's gotten worse, Rob.
It has.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I just look on. I see the king laughing in the background. I've seen some of the same people over the last 3-4 years on the same street corners right down the Vanier Parkway here, and I've seen how they have just gotten worse and worse, and it's sad to watch, where you saw somebody that looked, quite capable of, and healthy and probably able to hold down a job. And 3-4 years later, I see that same person on the corner, Rob, and, they've gotten to a point where they just look empty, and it's really heart-wrenching to see. They seem confused at times. They sometimes barely being able to stand up. I heard the gentleman I think you had from Oasis, was it?
Yesterday, Rob Boyd, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, Rob Boyd. Just listening to him and some of the issues that they have when it comes to, for instance, a safe drug supply and how it's not potent enough, right?
Yeah.
So, it's just things like, it's such a complex issue, Rob. I think if I look at sort of what's the solution in a utopian way, to build rehab centers in more remote areas where you're surrounded by nature. You got to put some money into it. You go into some of these rehab centers, and it's quite depressing. Just the space itself, it's not welcoming. You don't get the feeling that there's hope within those walls. I compare it to what the Royal Ottawa Mental Health Center used to look like, Rob. It was a brick, dark gray institution. Right. And now you drive by that place, and it's open and it's welcoming and it's colorful. You go inside. I've had a tour of the facility, and it's an incredible facility. I think that's the vision we need to have. And again, I know it's utopian. It would cost a hell of a lot of money, but you've got to take people out of the areas that they're in now, take them away from the temptation to be able to rehabilitate them.
Okay.
You can't just stick them downtown in these shelters that we have and expect anything's going to change. I know they have programs there and they do amazing work, and I'm not taking anything away from the people that are servicing the most vulnerable in our communities, but it's an absolute failure. It's not working.
Okay, we'll be right back with more of Derek Fage on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hi guys, my name is Vi and I'm a part of Encore Ottawa 3. My set at the Meridian Theatre is coming out this week, and I hope you tune in.
It's been 2 years later still.
mean, policing in every community is going to be challenged. The community policing model is already a harm reduction response to the way that they police. I just think that we have, again, another opportunity to use police for the things that police should be used for, and then develop some other avenues for things that we can take off a police officer's plate, because it's just not what they should be doing.
Here we go.
Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Back with Derek Fage, Rogers Television, Daytime Ottawa. See this clip of Joe Biden yesterday?
Oh my goodness, I did.
All right, for people who haven't seen this, so there's an event. It's like some kind of summit or assembly on fighting hunger in the United States, and one of the key organizers was Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, who sadly passed away in a car accident on August 3rd. And so anyway, at this event yesterday, just play the clip. This is the president yesterday.
I want to thank all of you here, for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this a reality.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Holy cow. The White House issued a statement about her death at the time.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Holy cow. What's going on there? I mean, age, but I mean, is he lucid at time? We're talking about the leader of the free world here.
I know. No, I'm concerned, and that's not the first time that we've seen that kind of behavior from him, Rob. Something like that, though, that was just so obvious. And as you said, I mean, he put out a release himself about Jackie's death. Yeah, there's reason for concern. I don't know how the White House is going to be able to.
They tried. They tried.
I know
yesterday.
they did, but it didn't work.
No.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, none of us believed what they had to say.
No. Okay.
I mean, what do you do though?
What do you do?
He's got 2 years left.
Yeah, 2 years, at least 2 years, right? Yeah. There's no way he can run again.
And this isn't a matter of ageism. This just sometimes it happens.
Sure.
It's happened to people that are younger than Joe Biden.
There were lots of questions about Ronald Reagan when he was.
Yes, exactly.
Especially in his second term.
It's a great example.
Yeah.
So, there's. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, keep him out of the spotlight as much as possible. But as you said,
that'll just raise more questions. That'll just raise more questions.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, how much time do we have? Like 4 minutes here. We got 4 minutes. We better do this quick. Sometimes I'll log on to Rolling Stone's website.
Yeah.
Rolling Stone magazine. They have a thing that's just lists of music. Lists.
Right.
So the one this week was the best songs of 1982. And
really?
according to Rolling Stone magazine, 1982 was, quote, the year that invented pop music as we know it today. Crazy new sounds, mutating and evolving at warp speed. Every style of music is booming, and the kids are taking over. It kicked off a cross-cultural mix and match future that we're all living in now. 5 of those 100 songs from 1982.
Okay.
Get up, let's make love tonight. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, 'cause you do it right. Baby, I got sick this morning, a sea was storming inside me. Baby,
Oh man, come on, Derek. Don't come to me.
rising and rising, and when I get that feeling, I want sexual healing, sexual.
Oh, Marvin Gaye. Where am I? There we go. I got Marvin.
It's a nice day to start
Billy Idol. I have the album on vinyl.
for a white wedding. It's a nice day to start again.
Oh, what's this one? It's not the Bangles, is it? Oh, Men at Work.
Good job. Good job. 3 out of 5. That's pretty good. I stumped you on 2 this week. The first one. Play the first one, Noah.
Oh, man, I know the song.
Yeah,
I
you
just
do.
can't-
Rolling Stone magazine described it in 1982 as the definitive new wave, technical, twitch, dance cut with bouncy Casio beats. Depeche Mode.
I can barely hear you.
Depeche Mode. Depeche Mode. Just
Oh,
can't get
Depeche
enough.
Mode,
Yeah,
thank
Depeche
you.
Mode. Just can't get enough. Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing.
Yeah, I knew I'd get that one eventually.
Billy Idol by White Wedding. I mean, that's him at his growling, snarling best.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. He used to have some great interviews on the Dave Letterman show.
Yeah.
I mean, just hilarious interviews.
And, oh, yeah, this, the girl band, yeah. The Go-Go's.
Oh, the Go-Go's. Darn it.
Yep.
Jeez, I should have got that one. Noah's going to be disappointed with me. I think he's got money on this. He thought I'd get like 3 out of 5 or something.
They said, just press pause for a second there. With Vacation is the name of that Go-Go song, Belinda Carlisle and those girls.
I thought you'd have a Madonna in there.
Everybody dreamed of going to Ridgemont High, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, yeah.
In 1982. And then, yeah, Men at Work, right? Men at Work.
Yeah.
Who can it be now?
Worst concert I've ever been to.
It's
Men at
funny
Work.
because Alex Gouge, one of our reporters, is a huge music fan and just went to see Ringo Starr.
Oh, yes,
And
I
there's
remember.
somebody from Men at Work, one of the band members from Men at Work is in Ringo Starr's band.
Oh, really?
And they're touring together. Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, Derek. Look, have a great show this afternoon. That sounds like a really good show on Truth and
thanks very much.
Reconciliation at 2 o'clock on
That's
Rogers
right.
22 and on Daytime
Repeats
Ottawa.
at 6 and 11.
And we'll speak next week, my friend. Thank you
All
again.
right, sounds
Bye-bye.
good.
This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I need to know that my voice matters and feel like my opinion is going to have an impact on our society and our youth.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Join me next time on Simply Cooking by Chef, where I'm going to show you how to make a traditional pizza and even a gluten-free one, all from scratch.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, September 29th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 8 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Construction work at a property on Deschamps Avenue in Vanier uncovered what could be human remains. City News received a tip from a listener last night. Now police do confirm this morning they were called to the 100 block of Deschamps yesterday afternoon. Police have confirmed what was uncovered could be human remains. Their investigation is ongoing. Power had to be cut to Bell Street last night, the entire street, after arcing wires at a house fire was an added hazard for firefighters. They were called to the scene after an unoccupied house was on fire. That had spread to a neighboring house. It was just after 10 o'clock. Several 911 calls sent those crews to Bell Street. The first house was in danger of collapsing, so firefighters were pulled from the structure, fighting that blaze from the outside only. Victim assistance not needed in this case. Both of those homes were scheduled for demolition. City News time, 10:02. And now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Overall, plenty of sunshine. Some clouds linger in the morning, but that's about it. The high today, 14 degrees. Tonight, clear and quite cool, down to 3 for the low. And after that chilly start tomorrow morning, it will get warmer up to 18 and lots of sunshine Friday. For today, the high, 14.
And right now, 8 degrees in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls. Hurricane Ian has left a path of destruction through southwest Florida in Lee County. That includes places like Fort Myers. Officials have been overwhelmed with thousands of calls for rescues. The sheriff there is Carmine Marcendo. He told ABC's Good Morning America there's a significant number of fatalities.
So while I don't have confirmed numbers, I definitely know the fatalities are in the hundreds.
Marceno says rescues are underway, but that rescue officials still cannot access many people who are in the waterways. The economy seems to be holding up well against rapidly rising interest rates in July anyway, as the country's economic output rose slightly. It was led by the resource sector. We get more from our senior business editor, Mike Eppel.
Demand for things that we pull out of the ground in the Canadian resource sector showed some strength in July to kick off the second half of the year, helping lift our economic output overall by 0.1%. We're expecting a negative performance, but overall, the resources sector, combined with higher higher prices for commodities right now helped offset a negative performance for Canadian retail spending trends, as 4 interest rate hikes, including a 100 basis point rate hike by the Bank of Canada in July, has led to a downturn in consumer retail spending. The August flash forecast is for an unchanged performance. We'll see if this tips into the later stages of the year. And some economists are forecasting a recession by year's end and going into 2023. At the City News Business Center, I'm Mike Apple.
So the economy did fare a little bit better than expected, but individual households in Canada not doing so well. High prices of groceries and gasoline have forced nearly every single household to tighten their financial belt. According to a new survey, 90% of those asked say they have made changes to their spending due to rising prices. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Thursday, free-for-all. So it's wide open on topics today. I'm not going to come up with the topics. I do have some things that are in the mix and that we can talk about, but I'd rather hear what you want to talk about. It can be something that's in the news or something that's, not in the news that you think should be in the news. Like, Rob, why aren't you guys covering this story? Whatever it is, 750-1310, 750-1310. We're away tomorrow. No Rob Snow Show tomorrow. Some special programming with Sam LaPrade will air tomorrow here on City News. Trust in the media. I wouldn't mind getting back into this topic again. Main Street Research had a poll recently. The results were released, I believe they came out over the weekend. It was primarily a poll about voting intentions now that Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party. It put the Conservatives at 41%, by the way, which is kind of a magic number. But we have this part of the poll. I briefly mentioned this. What is your level of trust in the Canadian news media, the traditional Canadian news media? That was one of the questions in this Main Street Research poll. And 24% said strongly distrust. What is your level of trust in the traditional Canadian media? Strongly distrust. And another 14% said somewhat distrust. And Main Street Research said traditional Canadian media companies like CBC, CTV, Global, Toronto Star, National Post, etc. So what, it's 38%. 38%, almost 40%. Let's round up, say 40%. Okay. Either strongly distrust or somewhat distrust the media. Why is that? Why is that number so high? What's going on there? And then another question that Main Street asked in this poll was, do you think traditional media in Canada has a political bias towards the left, right, or no bias? And 41% said it's biased to the left, and only 13% said it's biased to the right. So I found that interesting and totally, thoroughly, completely 110% both ends of the ice depressing. It reminds me of another poll that was done by Abacus Data. Abacus kind of issued a statement that said, much of the news we receive from news organizations is false, agree or disagree. Remember, we talked about this when this poll came out in June. And 44% of those polled said agree. 44% said, I agree much of the news we receive from news organizations is false. My goodness gracious. What are we doing wrong that we have lost so many people? Don't trust us. I mean, I wasn't expecting a great number when I first read that poll, but I was taken aback by the 44%. I think the news people receive from news organizations is false, like false. I mean, you'd be talking, I don't know, millions of people in the country don't trust what the media is reporting. Millions and millions and millions of people. 44%. I mean, that's a problem. And I mean, if you If you work in the industry, that's like an existential problem. That is an existential problem. What is it about the news media that so many would lack faith, I guess, in what they're getting from the news? That's one of the things that, maybe we can talk about as we make our way through the morning. At 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Okay? One line available there for you. It's yours. Some people have called already. It's good to hear from them. Irene?
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Irene. In Carleton Place.
In Carleton Place, yes. I'm really disappointed with the media coverage of what's happening in Nova Scotia.
Oh, really? Why is that?
You get the Prime Minister, he goes down there for a photo op, but he doesn't meet with the Premier of Nova Scotia, or I don't even think he goes to New Brunswick. But anyway, what my concern is all those people down there, like I haven't been able to reach any family down there because they have landlines.
Yeah.
And like some people have electric heating, and it's pretty cold down there right now. Yeah. I'm sure it is.
Well, they got lucky this week. They did have some mild weather. So I don't know where your family is. Mine is in North Sydney, so they were hit fairly hard, but
mine are in Sydney and in Glace Bay.
Right. Yeah. So
like
same general, the same general area. It's 15 degrees right there now, 11 o'clock in the morning. Right. So
yeah,
it's warmer there than it is here.
But I found that there seems to be more leadership from the Premier of Nova Scotia when he's talking about like how there's no cell phone coverage and he had a right to Ottawa, or he's the one who let everyone know about the Americans coming across. They had trouble with the Arrive Canada app. Like, why isn't like I would think that there should be. Well, I know it's early days, but they keep talking about mental health in Canada and all this. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are stressed out.
Oh, by now? Like almost a week, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, the storm hit a week ago tomorrow night, right? So.
Yeah, but the trauma, like the wind and the fear.
Oh, sure.
And,
yeah.
Like what country are we in? It just, I don't know. And,
it's the landline. The landline's going down is what does me in.
Yes.
They usually survive just about everything. The landlines, but.
Yeah, I haven't been, like I said, I haven't been able to reach my sister in over
it's
a
very
week.
unnerving. Yeah, it's very unnerving. No internet, like with my parents, no internet, no landline.
No.
Mercifully, there's someone on their road is like going up and down the road, and everybody on the road gets to use the generator for like an hour and a half and charge all their devices and whatever.
But I find with the Prime Minister and all that, this ties into their narrative about climate change.
Sure it does.
Climate change.
Yeah.
Right? So this is one way of saying, oh, well, we need more money. This justifies the tax. But they haven't got a clue on how to manage anything. Like when I was in Halifax the end of June at Dalhousie, they all had electric toilets, and I kept thinking, what's going to happen if the power goes out?
Okay.
Right? Like everything is electronic. They want electric cars. Well, duh.
Right.
And I guess the windmills aren't working.
All right, Irene. Thank you. Best of luck to you and yours. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, yeah. Mark is in Ottawa. Mark. Morning, Mark.
Hey, you used to, you always say the Nepean, a wonderful place to be.
A wonderful place to be in, where they picked the snow up before it ever hit the ground, Mark.
Used to be a wonderful place to be in before amalgamation.
Why is that?
Well, before amalgamation, RMOC, Mike Harris, that was a real bad mistake when he amalgamated everything, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
But
okay.
Nepean, so when I lived there, we had our own fire department, our own police department, our own libraries, our own city hall, our own arenas, sportsplex.
Yeah.
Everything was self-sufficient.
Pay as you go, no debt, right?
No debt. And Ben Franklin would be vibrating in his grave right now if he's seen the state of affairs.
But, I hear this, and then the people at the regional government would say, those people in Nepean, they don't know how good they have it and the number of services that are actually offered by the regional government. The reason Nepean was a wonder, the reason Nepean was a wonderful place to be in is because the region did all the heavy lifting for you.
Nepean had its own snowplows.
Yeah. Okay.
It had everything.
Right. So what's the problem now? What's the problem now?
Well, now that everything is there, so all this debt just keeps piling on. Like, I don't live in Nepean anymore.
Right.
But all this debt just keeps piling on to everybody citywide.
Okay.
So Nepean, they managed their books and they just did everything, and everybody was happy and everybody wanted to live in Nepean, but now whatever.
Whatever. Okay.
It just, with this new mayor's race, I don't see any line to fiscal stability anywhere. They want to buy bike pass, and everybody's liberal in this thing. They just want to spend.
All right. Okay, Mark. Thank you. You've had your say. Thank you. Okay. Nepean, no longer a wonderful place to be in. Dave in the West End. Dave.
Amen to Nepean. The snow used to get plowed on our street at about 7:30 in the morning.
Right.
Now it's 11 o'clock at night, my son says.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so there you go.
And you were in the garbage business, right?
I
wonder how often they picked up the garbage back in the good old days in the city of Nepean.
Well, July and August, twice a week.
Twice a week.
Right.
A week.
Yeah.
Not twice a month. Now it's twice a month, I guess, right?
Imagine that. From twice a week to twice a month.
Yeah, but their taxes went down, though, Dave. Oh
yeah,
wait,
sure,
right,
sure.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Mr. Montagano used to do the routes, and he did a good job for that double pickup, I'll tell you.
Right, so, all right, we have this number.
Today, in the media.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And my big complaint about the media is when they're interviewing someone and they tell a real barefaced lie, they just let it go.
Okay, all right.
The media used to be fairly independent. They used to chase the truth, and all they do now is hold the mic while the guy spouts a lot of nonsense.
Okay.
So that's my big beef today.
Not enough critical thinking.
Exactly. Okay. And that Biden thing that you...
Oh, isn't that something else? Yeah.
Well, Rob, that's been going on since his very first day in office.
Right.
He canceled a pipeline, his very first day. Mm-hmm. And the left are pretty wise to him, and they're using him like a tool. The schools, I would like someone to report on what's going on in our schools, because they're teaching little boys in school now that they don't have to be a boy if they don't want to.
Well, yeah. We have a conversation for another day. But you know, Dave, just on that point, the next battleground in politics is the school board elections. I mean, that's where it's down and dirty and nasty, is the school board elections right now. 10:17. This is the Rob Snow Show. It's a free-for-all today. Whatever topic you want to talk about, we can get into it within reason here. 750-1310. A few lines available there for you. Love to hear from you. This is City News.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Did you have fun? Check this out. It's nice, right?
Welcome to the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Stalo people. The Stalo are people of the river. I'm so thankful for the courage and resiliency of our ancestors who lived on this land since time immemorial. Each of us have gifts from the Creator, and our Creator has a plan and purpose to be fulfilled in our territory. As we embrace our traditional teachings, we can lead the next generation into the fullness of what our Creator designed. Our shared history reveals a broken relationship. But as all Canadians commit to hear truth, acknowledge injustice, we can learn to walk in our traditional way, Letsamot, with a good heart and a good mind. Then all of our lives will be enriched. Kwasai.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
Focus better.
Partner better.
Sleep better.
Breathe better.
Love better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Everything gets better when you get active.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
With a free-for-all this morning at 750-1310. No Rob Snow Show tomorrow. Truth and Reconciliation programming tomorrow here on City News. So we're wide open on topics. I mean, you have had 4 debates on climate change for the mayoral race right now. If you want to talk about that, McKenney's plan is being described as bold and ambitious, net zero by the year 2050. Of course, we've had more than our fair share of extreme weather events over the last several years. Floods, tornadoes, floods again. Derico, I can understand why it's a big issue. And, you know, we've been warned, you know, those events are only going to become more common because of climate change. Look what happened in Atlantic Canada. Look what's happening in Florida right now. I guess just when it comes to all the candidates and their climate plans, I just want to know, how much is it going to cost Ottawa taxpayers? And I'd like to know what difference it's going to make. If climate change is a global problem, would it make any difference whatsoever what we do here in sleepy old Ottawa? But that's up for the voters to decide. And if you want to talk about that, we can get right back into that if you want. New poll from Main Street out over the weekend. Almost 40% expressing some sort of distrust in the Canadian, what I would call legacy news media. Why is that number so high? We've had other polls showing similar results in Canada. You know, 40%, give or take, expressing some level of distrust in the news media. What's going on with that? So back to the phone lines here. We have Paul in the Pontiac. Good morning, Paul.
Yeah, good morning.
Hi,
How
Paul.
are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine, Paul.
Yeah, so I just will be brief here. I think globalism has a lot to do with this. The fact that media is being owned by increasingly large corporations, limiting ownership, not so many local owners.
Okay.
And most of that media, now that we've done cutbacks everywhere in Canadian media, where do we get our media from? We get it just dropped in from the U.S. And our journalists have lost that enthusiasm to actually research the subject and give us a nuance that applies to Canada. End result is they just accept carte blanche what comes out of the U.S. And your point about Joe Biden is a great one, because if you look at mainstream media in the U.S., they didn't cover that. You are probably the only person that covered that in Canadian media.
Oh, I don't know.
So they're
it's hard to miss. It's hard to miss.
Our media.
You know, if you have a Twitter account, it's hard to miss that. I mean, it was all over Twitter, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
but that's the kind of stuff we expect from journalists, is to get out there and find the stories of interest and the capacity of the U.S. president to be able to function is probably something of interest to even Canadian public, but it's not covered.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for letting me comment.
Yeah, you're welcome, Paul. Yeah. I mean, I guess when I see these numbers, you know, like close to 40% or more than 40%, it has to be just the political news. I mean, news is a big, I hate to use this term, such a cliche, ecosystem, right? I'd like to know, are more people, for example, more likely to trust local news? Reporting from City Hall or the Ottawa Courthouse or these kinds of things. I think it must be the political news that distrust in the reporting of political news is so high that it skews like everything. Because there's all kinds of news. Like Sportsnet reports on the Jays game. You know, you can't. What is the score? Fake news? You know, whatever. The final score is 4-3. It's not fake news. Or, you know, business news. I'm looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now. It's down 575 points. Yay. You know, that's just what the Dow Jones is doing right now. It's not fake or anything or skewed or biased. Or, you know, we sent a local news reporter down to City Hall to talk about Lansdowne Park, what the vote was. People aren't going to say, well, that's false or biased or whatever, right? So it all has to do with the political reporting. The product news organizations are putting out there when they're reporting on politics. That would be my only conclusion. Colin in Canada, you're on City News. Colin.
Well, I think you may have a point there, Rob, that it is the political reporting in this country and in this province that gets skewed, that gets people feeling cynical about it. And I mean, I haven't lost complete faith in the mainstream media. I believe they definitely have a role in our democracy, but you know, you only have to look at the headline yesterday from the Global News story, where they're quoting a poll, and the headline reads, 1 in 3 Canadians believe Trudeau should stay in power as Tories edge ahead in poll.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so if you're an NDP supporter or a Conservative supporter, and you read that headline, you're looking at that and you're shaking your head because you're thinking, shouldn't that headline have read, 2 in 3 Canadians believe it's time for Trudeau to go?
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's the type of bias that I think people see in the headlines, and then they read the stories, and it leaves them shaking their heads. Like, why would Global, couch it in that fashion?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Yep, good stuff, good stuff. So, yeah, Thursday free-for-all, 750-1310. We're wide open on topics. If it's in the news and you want to talk about it, if it's not in the news and you think it should be in the news, let's talk about it. 750-1310. We're halftime now. We'll be right back on the phone lines when we come back on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Hi, my name is Isabel. I'll be performing as part of Encore Ottawa 3. I hope you can tune in and catch it on Rogers TV.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, some people used the A word. They called it an accident, but it wasn't. An accident implies that no one was at fault. But when someone impaired by alcohol and/or drugs chooses to drive, they're fully responsible for the crash that can result. So please, for the memory of my brother DJ and the thousands of families whose lives have been shattered by impaired drivers, let's drop the A word.
A crash caused by impaired driving is not an accident.
Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., it's the RTV quiz.
Giovanni Petiti hosts a weekly trivia competition that lets you play from the comfort of your couch. Play along at home and challenge your friends. And don't forget to follow along on social media. Let us know who's top of trivia, and you can find yourself featured on a future episode.
Are you kidding me, folks?
The RTV Quiz, Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV or at rogerstv.com/RTV Quiz.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, September 29th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it is 9 degrees, and here's what's making news this hour. The city is reminding drivers to plan ahead and factor in extensive delays this weekend if you plan on using the 417. Starting at 8 p.m. tomorrow, a 5K portion of the 417 will close both ways between Metcalfe and the Collin and Kirkwood exits. The planned closure is to allow crews to replace the Rochester Street Bridge. The bridge will reopen at that portion of the road would reopen at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, and detours will be in place. Construction work at a property on the Sham Avenue has uncovered what could be human remains. City News received a tip from a listener last night, and now police have confirmed they were called to the 100 block of that street in Vanier yesterday afternoon. Police have confirmed what was uncovered could be human remains. The investigation is ongoing. Canada Post is launching 4 new stamps showcasing Indigenous artists' vision for truth and reconciliation. The Crown Corporation says this is the first in an annual series meant to encourage reflection on the painful legacy of Canada's residential schools. The stamps will be released today, a day before the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The stamps are inscribed with the Indigenous language of each of their creators. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Thursday free-for-all. No Rob Snow Show tomorrow, so no Friday free-for-all. We'll do a free-for-all today. Whatever you want to talk about, if it's in the news, not in the news. If you want to talk about it, I'm open to talking about it for the most part. Angelo in Nepean. Angelo.
How are you, Rob?
Good. Angelo, what's up?
I want to say that my fellow Italians finally woke up. They voted the greatest leader in the world today. Forza Italia, viva Giorgia Meloni.
Okay. I don't know much about Italian politics. A lot of people are freaked out about this woman who's going to become the leader of Italy. Should we be worried?
No, she's not a fascist. She's far from Benito Mussolini. But I'm telling you, she's going to fix the economy in Italy, and she's going to fight for the Italian people, unlike all these corrupt, liberal leaders that we've had in the past. Finally, somebody with brains and somebody that agrees with what the people want and is not afraid to say what the people want.
Okay.
There's been a lot of issues in Italy from where I'm from in Calabria. There's a lot of, don't get me wrong, I'm not against immigration, but there's a lot of illegal immigration coming through the southern ports, and she's going to put a stop to that along with Salvini and Berlusconi.
Okay. All right. So we need to relax and see what happens. And because, man, oh, man, a lot of people are quite freaked out about how that whole vote went down with that election.
Give her a chance and tell these
Give her a chance. Okay.
Radical feminists to be happy they got a first female prime minister in Italy. They're not saying that, though, because she's right-wing.
Okay. All right, Angelo. Thank you.
Take care, Rob.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk about what happened in Italy with Professor Tepper, and probably in about an hour from now, as a matter of fact, from Carleton. He'll know all about it. Derek in Ottawa. Derek.
Morning, Rob. You're going away tomorrow, are you?
No, I just have the day off. We're doing special Truth and Reconciliation programming tomorrow.
Oh, good for you. You got a day off. I'd like to talk about liberal bias in the media, and I'd like to contrast two stories, I guess. One was Pierre Poilievre. The other one's Justin Trudeau. Pierre Poilievre, during his campaigning, said you should be allowed to buy Bitcoin. And that was framed as, hey, he's telling people to run out and buy Bitcoin tomorrow, and he has a side business selling Bitcoin, and you would have lost all your money, basically. That's how the media framed that.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think I think you're wrong there.
Well, he never said go out and buy Bitcoin.
Well, you're confusing the media with politicians. That's how his political opponents are framing it.
Okay, perhaps, but the media reported on it. I mean, they didn't correct it when, they didn't say actually he said this and play a quote or whatever. But anyways, Justin Trudeau, a year or two ago earlier said, if you recall, there was issues with the AstraZeneca vaccine. He said, get the first vaccine that's offered to you, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then a few weeks later, if you recall, I think you had it actually, in Ontario it was yanked because it was unsafe, or they deemed it to be unsafe.
I don't know.
But nobody brought him to task on that, saying, why are you giving health advice? You gave the wrong advice, and now we've yanked it because it's unsafe.
Did they yank the AstraZeneca vaccine?
Did they not in Ontario? Am I mistaken on that?
I don't know. I've had two doses of it, so...
I thought people were caught in limbo. They got the first dose.
I don't know. I've had two
Ontario
doses of it.
I've
had 2 doses of it, so...
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
thank
you're
you.
on a real win streak today, Derek. Darlene in Nepean. Darlene.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Darlene.
Yeah, I just want to say that I do trust the mainstream media.
You do? Okay.
But if they have to prove themselves. It's like every person, every doctor, every hospital, every anything, you soon find out whether what they are saying is the truth or it's being twisted or downright destroyed. And then you just stay away from them or take it as a source to listen to find out what the lies are being spread. And with CBC, any other organization that is paid for by or subsidized by the federal government or any source of government, you have already taken away their credibility. Because when I listen to CBC, I love CBC radio at night.
Okay.
Television, they've got more commercials or just as many, therefore income, as the private stations. And I think we're being very unfair, to the mainstream media. And can I say that Mark Sutcliffe, I truly respect that man, and I think the last time I spoke to you, and, I mentioned what I thought and still believe that that Mayor Watson asked to have a conversation with him, and that concerned me. But Mark Sutcliffe, he's one of the most honest, open, and he is a true person. He talks about his family, their concerns, like when he was, had your radio spot, and he handed over to you, which you earned, of course. And, people have got to start listening to what he's saying, and it's what we need. Yesterday, I was my son was driving me back from an appointment, and I hadn't been downtown for months.
Okay.
And it just boggled my mind what a mess this city is in.
How so?
Everything is under construction.
Well, yeah, okay.
And, but all at once. So it took, instead of maybe, 15 minutes
right.
for my son to drive.
Yeah, well, would you rather they didn't fix the roads or didn't repair the sidewalks? Then you'd be complaining about how bad the roads are and how bad the sidewalks are.
But not all at once.
Not all at once.
Everything is out of balance. It's too much. And Catherine McKinney would have every handicapped person trying to ride a bike.
Okay, all right.
For God's sakes, let's get some balance here.
Balance. Okay, darling. Thank you. Okay. All right. JC. It says JC calling from Halifax. Is that right?
Hey, Rob. Yeah, hey, Rob. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are things there?
Awesome. Hey, I'm a long-time listener to your show, and I really enjoy your content,
Really?
for sure.
Do you live in Halifax, or you just happen to be there, or?
Yeah, I'm just working out here at the moment.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make a couple comments on the mainstream media piece. I really feel like there's been lots of examples of the mainstream media kind of fitting the sort of their headlines to their narrative. That's the perspective that I take, and I'm a bit of a radio news junkie, and I was listening to Evan Solomon the other day as an example, and hopefully I can say that.
Yeah.
And he had a guest on, Mr. Tim Powers, and the topic of conversation really was that disgusting thing that's happened to Mr. Poilievre and his wife.
Yeah.
And Mr. Powers just turned it around and kind of, you reap what you sow sort of thing back on Mr. Poilievre. I mean, it's things like that get people just like, why would you take such a disgusting thing and just try to turn it around to match potentially what your narrative is? From my perspective, it's not, what the news media is telling you, it's what they're not telling you. That's
Okay.
the only comment I have on that.
All right. How are things in Halifax?
Oh, great. I was telling your screener there that it's a really sunny day, and
Yeah.
Maritimers, everybody's just kind of pounding back. It's all good.
Okay. Do you live there? I don't want to get too personal. Do you live there? Or I'm just curious. Did you get hit by the storm?
Yeah, I was saying to your. I do live here. I live inland, though, a little bit away from the coastline. So
Okay, all right.
It wasn't too bad over where we were. We had some trees down, that sort of thing, but not too bad.
Okay. All right. Glad you're well. Thank you, JC. You call anytime. Always like the
I appreciate
updates.
what you do, Rob.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is interesting. Senator Vern White will resign from the Senate as of October 2nd. First reported by the Hill Times, our producer David Smith has confirmed it with the senator. Senator Vern White is resigning from the Senate. That's interesting. Jason in Stittsville.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
I just wanted to, the last caller was talking about the AstraZeneca vaccine. That's true. I'm looking at a CBC article right now that they suspended the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine in 2021. It's in the summertime.
Yeah. David says Ontario temporarily paused AstraZeneca May 2021 over safety concerns before resuming the rollout 10 days later. That's what we
but when they resumed it, it was only for people over the age of 55 because they had, and it was the same with one of the mRNA. I can't remember if it was Moderna or Pfizer because of the myocarditis issue.
Okay.
But anyway, I thought the caller made a good point because it's true. They did, they told us go out and get it. People had concerns. They were called conspiracy theorists, and it turns out they were right. Like one of the first times I ever called you, Rob, was actually about that because I had read an article and they were citing a study from the New England Journal of Medicine, and my stepson at the time wanted to. Well, he plays hockey, and they wanted them to be vaccinated to play hockey. We knew that COVID wasn't a big threat to young, healthy people, and I brought up that statistic, 1 in 5,000, and at the time, because I had looked at the deaths in Canada for people of that age range,
right,
and there was only 8.
But this explains. So this explains your suspicion or distrust of the media. But I'm wondering why it's so. I mean, it's. Like for the Abacus says 44%. This poll says 38% have some kind of distrust for the media.
Right, but Rob, what I'm saying though is because just a couple months ago, Kieran Moore, I mean that was a concern for people. I talked to other parents that were concerned about the myocarditis, and then just 3 months ago, I mean that was over a year ago that I called into your show, and then he cited that very same statistic a year later after everyone was forced to. And so there was that, and it just, I think a lot around COVID, you look at the hospitalization numbers, it wasn't until 2 years in, and those numbers were used to lock us down. They were used to keep us from our family. They were used, people died alone in the hospital, and those were the numbers that they used to justify all that. And then we found out 2 years later that was it was only half that. Most of those people were for COVID, and they still haven't done a breakdown of the deaths in Canada. Like, were they for COVID or with COVID, people who died? We still don't know that.
Okay.
You know?
Gotcha.
So I think that
well, you know, maybe for a lot of it, you know, we're in the news media, we're trying to do more with less.
I understand that.
You know, I went to broadcasting school. I didn't go to medical school. There's only so much expertise that we can have. I tried to do my best for 2 years to have the smartest people I could find on the radio.
100%.
Right?
And I think you did a good job. It was a new thing. People didn't know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, there was a lot of credible, very good scientists that were speaking out with concerns. Not anti-vax people, not people that were denying COVID exists, but, you know, and they were, I mean, there was especially in the United States, I mean, there's been Senate hearings about it. There was a coordinated effort to take these guys down.
A coordinated effort by journalists, By journalists? Or by news organizations?
Yeah, okay.
Or by politicians. Some people.
Look, I'll explain it.
No, I don't have time. We could go on this forever. And that's our time for this week, Jason. And you've called just about every day this week. So 10:45, be right back. Michelle, Fonzie, Bruce, you'll all get on the air. This is City News.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to an old friend. But when you're saying farewell to your vehicle, Kidney Car makes it fast and easy. Just call or visit our website. We'll take any vehicle in any condition and give you a tax receipt for a minimum of $300. No headaches and no towing charges. It's the one-stop solution for getting rid of your unwanted vehicle in just a few short minutes. When your vehicles reach the end of the road, call us toll-free or visit kidneycar.ca.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, we invite you to join us for a special edition of the show as we celebrate Truth and Reconciliation Day here at Rogers TV. Our guest will join us to share some powerful stories and, of course, remind us of why we should become allies with Indigenous people across Canada and, of course, around the world. They will share their Indigenous culture and some fabulous food, as well as some wonderful events you can partake in.
$20. Hi, I'm Maggie. Come into my kitchen. When you're using salt in a recipe, check for saltiness. Not all salts are equal. A fine grain salt is a lot more salty than a large grain salt because that takes longer to get into the food. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20.
Hi, I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
Hi guys, my name is Vi and I'm a part of Encore Ottawa 3. My set at the Meridian Theatre is coming out this week and I hope you tune in.
It's been 2 years later still.
On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
For the Thursday free-for-all, Fonzie in Ottawa. You're on City News, Fonzie.
How you doing, Rob?
Good, thank you. What's on your mind?
Good morning.
Says you want to talk about the opioid crisis.
One of your questions this week was about if Ottawa has a drug problem.
Yeah.
I don't think it does.
You don't think so?
It does have a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
You see it everywhere. I work downtown and there's people that try to break in my truck almost every day. They're right in front of me. And yeah, just an example yesterday, this how much there is. I'm working in Vanier. I'm going down Vanier Parkway. I don't know if you know that area.
Sure, of course, yeah.
As I'm turning down on Montreal Road,
yeah,
there's a bus shelter, the glass bus shelter.
Yeah.
There's someone actually living in there. He was sleeping in there, and he actually put a piece of cardboard so nobody would come in. Meanwhile, there's a woman with 2 kids waiting for the bus outside in the rain.
Oh, my gosh.
I drive down to the next intersection, which is MacArthur Road in Vanier Parkway.
Yep.
There's a guy and a girl. They're doing the peace pipe in the bus shelter.
Oh, my gosh.
And then as I'm going by, I'm turning to go on Donald Street. And everybody knows about those beggars on the street begging for money at the intersection. Now, let me tell you a story. When I was 20 years old, I actually got a jaywalking ticket in Ottawa.
Okay.
And those people are actually on the street, slowing traffic down while the light is green, and they don't care if you hit them or not, and it's not right. They're jaywalking. And the thing that kind of got me off yesterday is while I was waiting at the intersection, there was a police officer in his cruiser right beside me looking at the whole thing.
Yeah.
The light turned green.
Okay.
The guy was still standing in the middle of traffic, and he closed a blind eye to it. Now, I think I don't know, I can't pinpoint the problem, but I don't think the city is doing the right job.
What do you think is the right job? What's the right job?
I don't know. Like I say, I don't think by handing out a syringe and drugs to those people, I don't think it's the right solution.
Okay.
Because, like I say, I work downtown and I see those people cranking up every day. And then the next day, there's a guy that, I don't know if the city pays him or not, but you see them with yellow vests. They go around and pick up syringe that they're lying everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why does the city make a deal with those people? Like, we're giving you free syringe. If you want more drugs, bring the old ones back. That would fix the problem.
Well, we do have programs like that. We also have vans that drive around and deliver needles to people.
Yes. So I don't know if that's the real solution of fixing the drug problem in Ottawa by feeding them. And like that. Did you ever heard of that center in Ottawa where they actually serve wine to people on the street?
Yeah. That's an alcohol withdrawal program.
Every hour. They're allowed every hour to go there and to drink that bottle of wine, that glass of wine.
Yeah, it's a management. It's some kind of management program that they have, right? Yeah, it's kind of like methadone, I guess, that way.
I don't know if that's really helping them, but you should see the lineup every hour. People go there just to drink their glass of wine, and then they come back the next hour all day long. It's like that. And on average, they go to about 2 bottles of wine a day. I listened to a documentary about that. And I was so disgusted. It's like, why are we feeding those people what they need when we should be helping them another way?
Okay. Thank you, Fonzie. I got you.
In Vancouver here, and you see it downtown. You see it in Vanier. You see it everywhere. And those people, some of them are very scary. And they pull up to you in a car, and you see people rolling their windows because they're scared.
Okay, Fonzie, I'm going to let you go. I got you. We've taken a lot of calls like that over the last few days. Michelle in Ottawa South, you're up next on City News. Michelle.
Hi, Rob. Yeah, I have to say that your topics this week have been so interesting, and some of your calls are so great.
Thank you.
But I think it was yesterday you were doing the convoy. My days are a bit mixed up.
2 days
here.
ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I was listening, and I was thinking, like, things just came right to my mind, remembering how we got to where we ended up. And very early on, Robert Benzie said, on Evan Solomon's show that when we were watching the young families line up across the country waving with their flags in their frozen faces, and Robert Benzie says, well, they're very monochromatic. I mean, where else could you say that about anybody? It has nothing to do with anything. They're people. We're all people, right? And then we had Joel Harden there. They were down there blocking the truckers from coming into town. They'd had enough. They had their right to do so.
Sure, yeah.
But on the cross-country checkup with Ian Hannamansing, Joel Harden actually said that they're lighting fires in apartment buildings, these truckers, which hadn't been proven at the time and has since gone to court and been found they weren't, truckers had nothing to do with it. Nobody even stops that stuff. It goes out and it's across the country. People hear it, they grab it. But if you're a conservative and you try and pass off a big toot like that, good luck. They'll stop you right in your tracks. So there is a bias there. And many people see it. And you get tired of it after a while.
Right.
We had the local news anchors competing with each other who was out as if they were on the front lines in the Ukraine, fighting the war, risking their lives, going out there. In the meantime, you could watch YouTube and it looked like a love-in. So, and Catherine McKenney's letter, yes, she's a counselor. She's a counselor of a ward that happens to be in the nation's capital. You're going to tell people they can't go to Washington, D.C. and protest? You have to recognize when you buy a property downtown that something might happen and you have the benefits of living there, but there might be some disadvantages too.
So it's kind of like somebody who moves to Hunt Club and complains about the noise of the airport? Is that what you're saying? Or?
Identical. Or moving out to the country and complaining about the smell of pig poop. I mean, come on. What do you expect?
Right.
But let me just, about Ponzi, because Rob, thank you for continuing to bring the mess of drugs on the street in Ottawa to our attention. It should be a huge issue in our local election because it's very sad and it's growing. And yesterday, again, my day's mixed up, you had Rob Boyd on.
Yesterday.
And I was listening and I just, normalizing words like an unregulated market is such crap. And we all know that different drugs have different effects. But one thing all drugs have is they destroy families and they blow up futures and they cause very undignified deaths and lots of them. And globally, the world is addicted. And now if you have teenage angst and you go out and you want to experiment, your life can just be over like that. And it has always been that way, just more so now with these synthetic drugs. So decriminalizing isn't going to solve it, Rob, because just on your news station last weekend...
it's just on the decriminalization, the thinking is this a criminal justice problem? Is it solved with cops and courts and jails, or is it a public health problem? And that's why
it's both. It's both.
I think when it comes to, say, dealing drugs or trafficking in drugs, profiting off the misery of drugs, that's a criminal justice problem. But the addict, is the addict a criminal or does the addict have an illness?
No, but here's the thing, Rob. If they would just shake the whole system and break it down and take what we know works and revamp the whole thing, we could have real success and we could save a lot of lives. And all of it is a waste of taxpayers' money. So when I hear this nonsense about, safe consumption and everything, take marijuana for an example. I know more people now that grow marijuana than ever did before, people that didn't even smoke it now.
Grow it? Oh, wow.
I know more people now that make their own beer and wine. I know people who make potato vodka. So what happens, and again, I was just going to allude to the story that your station ran last week about
where do you live that people are making potato vodka?
Listen,
what is going on? Are you surrounded by bootleggers down there in Ottawa South? Michelle, come on. All right, no, we're out of time.
Can I just finish this?
No, we're out of time. Out of time means we're out of time. I got to get the news on. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry I couldn't fit everybody in. So coming up right after the 11 o'clock news, we will have Randall Denley on the municipal election campaign. And his column this week, more leaning, he was looking at who has the substantive policies. He leans more to the Sutcliffe campaign than the McKenney campaign. Some blowback for that. Steve Warren, busy weekend ahead in the world of sports and a complicated world. And we'll look at some of the big international news stories with Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University. That's the final of our program today. Final hour of our program. Rob Snow Show, City News.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Putting the focus on smaller businesses and less larger sized businesses, as it's very different for people like me that are like literal small business owners, where we've bootstrapped money and we don't have a lot of funding, and to be able to help us through that. There has been some help for us, but I think it would be a greater opportunity to see us thrive through the next couple of years.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
I need to know that my voice matters and feel like my opinion is going to have an impact on our society and our youth.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, September 29th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, it is 9 degrees. It's also 9 degrees in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Hurricane Ian has carved a path of destruction across Florida. The storm trapped people in flooded homes, cut off the only bridge to a barrier island, destroyed historic waterfront pier, and knocked out power to 2.5 million people. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says federal and state agencies are working to get people out of harm's way.
We've also been working with hospitals overnight who've been on generator power. We're in the process of evacuating 2 healthcare facilities to safer locations north.
Authorities have confirmed at least 1 person has died in the storm in Florida. With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Overall, plenty of sunshine. Some clouds linger in the morning, but that's about it. The high today, 14 degrees. Tonight, clear and quite cool, down to 3 for the low. And after that chilly start tomorrow morning, it will get warmer up to 18 and lots of sunshine Friday. For today, the high, 14.
City News time is 11:02. Senator Vern White is leaving the Red Chamber. The former Ottawa Police Chief's office confirming to City News that the senator is indeed leaving the Senate. His resignation is effective on Sunday, October 2nd, and comes well before his mandatory retirement age of 75. White was appointed to the Senate in 2012 by then Prime Minister Stephen Harper. The high prices of groceries and gas has forced nearly every household to tighten their financial belts, according to a new survey. City News parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
The cost of living crisis has hit all of us, but now a new poll from the Angus Reid Institute finds we're at the point where 9 out of 10 people say they've been forced to curtail spending and tighten their budgets, an 8-point jump from August. Half say it's difficult to feed their family, and 46% say they're worse off now than they were at the same time last year, which is a 12-year high. Many are just cutting discretionary spending, half are putting off major purchases or travel, and a quarter say they've stopped putting money into savings and retirement. Conservatives like leader Pierre Poilievre have been hammering the federal government on inflation, calling on it to cut taxes.
This government is out of touch and Canadians are out of money.
The Liberals plan to boost GST rebates, increase the housing allowance, and give out dental care checks to ease inflationary pressures. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time 11:03. If you're looking for something to do this weekend, why not a fair older than this country? City News reporter Chris Curries has more.
It's the Metcalfe Fair, celebrating 166 years.
Originally, it was combined with Russell and Metcalfe, and then it became the Metcalfe Fair and has always been hosted. So it moved around in the very, very early years. So a long-standing tradition of rural agriculture in the Metcalfe area.
Vice President Cheryl Cooper tells City News there's something for everyone, from giant pumpkins to home crafts, livestock shows and horse shows. There's also the Demolition Derby taking place tonight, and the fair runs until Sunday. You can find out more info through our website, ottawa.citynews.ca. Chris Curries, City News.
And the 53rd edition of the Panda Games kicks off on Saturday between Ottawa and Carleton University. And police are warning everyone to keep the celebrations to a minimum this year. No flipping of cars or general rioting. That's the message from Ottawa Police.
Together with Ottawa Bylaw and the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, will have a significant and sustained presence in the Byward Market, Sandy Hill, and Old Ottawa South area for the Panda Game festivities.
Interim Chief of Police Steve Bell says they will be monitoring known party spots and will not be tolerating any disruptive behavior. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Back into municipal election campaign coverage with longtime Ottawa Citizen columnist, also writes for the National Post, and author of many wonderful books. Randall Denley is back with us here on the Rob Snow Show. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Last week you mentioned a book signing in Cumberland.
Yeah, I was over the annual Heritage Market at the Cumberland Museum. Great event. They had about 100 vendors. A lot of people were out. It was a perfect day, as you remember.
Yeah, good.
Sold a lot of books, so I was happy.
Yes, good for you. Any other events coming up like that for you on your calendar when you look ahead?
Next thing that I've got is Signatures Homemade or Handmade Craft Show in Lansdowne Park. I believe that starts October the 20th.
Okay.
4-day event, so
all right.
Haven't been on that one before. We'll see how it goes.
Good. You remind us, and we'll give you a little plug.
I will.
Because some people do mention they hear you on the radio, right? So that's always
they
cool.
do, yeah.
Nice.
Quite a large number, actually.
Yeah, that's nice. So, you've sat through all 4 of the environment and climate change mayoral debates, I'm sure, Randall Denley.
Yeah. Apparently there's no other issue.
I can't imagine having to go through that, but some of them have gone through that, apparently. Nevertheless, you have taken a look at the platforms, and in your column this week have talked about some of the major differences, specifically between the Sutcliffe platform, the McKinney platform. What are they as you see them, Randall Denley?
Well, they do touch on a lot of the same areas, but I have to say, Rob, I was a bit surprised by Catherine McKinney's platform, not in the sense of what she's talking about, because it's the things you would anticipate, of course, climate action, affordable housing, transit, cycling, but there really isn't a lot to it. There's a lot of, just a handful of point form things. It just feels sketchy, which surprises me because, McKinney has been a councillor for 2 terms and really involved in politics one way or another most of her life. So I would have expected more detail and probably more pushing in the envelope on those things. And climate change in particular, McKinney talks about the urgent need for bold climate action. So the bold action would be City of Ottawa, net zero by 2050, 28 years from now. And how will we get there? Well, the key thing will be to add a new climate bureaucrat to the city's array. I mean, that's a bold plan.
Okay. Make sure they have a Presto card and don't drive to work, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't quite get her National Urban Park plan either. It's turn the Greenbelt into a national urban park.
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to it, but what would actually change?
Nothing.
When anybody talks about developing 6 square inches of the greenbelt, politicians at all levels rise up and decry it. And I do find it interesting, though, that people who are very concerned about sprawl, any suburban growth, sprawl, we're against it. We want a compact city, density, cut down on driving. Having the greenbelt in the middle of the city obviously runs against all those things, but that is kind of an Ottawa thing, that the greenbelt is essential, can't be touched, and yet...
Sacred. Yeah,
it's sacred, but we're against growth outside and actually growth inside as well. So it gets a little challenging. Everybody's in favor of intensification in theory, of course, but not really this particular building.
Yeah. Plus,
or in our neighborhood.
Plus, it's not the city's decision. Like, this is a common theme in your column. Is some of the pledges, promises here. Not that they don't have value, but it's not really in the city's purview. There's a lot of that here.
It isn't, and the National Urban Park would entail asking all the federal players to get on side and change the designation of it. And I would imagine people on the federal side would have the same question that I have. What's going to change? What would be gained? Now, if there had been a plan put forward to say, well, look, we want to turn it into a national urban park, which is going to be a lot of this, a lot of this, a lot of this, much more ability for the public to use it, well, maybe that would be a gain. But I didn't see that level of detail offered. And when I look at Mark Sutcliffe's plans, they're, if anything, too detailed, but he's covering a lot of ground. And I think the thread that runs through all of his ideas is that they're reasonable and balanced. If you look at transportation, for example, Sutcliffe says he's not going to declare war on the car. Well, that doesn't seem too radical to most people, but at City Hall, it's like, what? War in the car? Well, we've been waging that war for years. If you don't take public transit or ride a bike, it's not the right kind of person. But the reality is that most people in Ottawa get to work driving a car. Even after the big transit line, rail line goes in, they're still going to get to work driving a car. I just find Sutcliffe more realistic in that respect, although he's certainly not going to reduce OC Transpo, but I think he's hit on the key problem that OC hasn't really responded properly to the fact that their world has changed totally by the pandemic and the lack of people coming downtown. So you would think this would be the opportunity to say, is there a more effective way to use bus service? And it's never been great for anything except the daily commute downtown, but rather than running half-empty buses on routes that people aren't using, are the routes that people would use if we redeployed those buses? That's more the kind of thinking that I'm looking for, rather than the kind of things that McKinney's offered, for example, freezing transit fares. Okay, what does that do? Doesn't stop any costs from going up. It just means that more costs will be paid from property taxes, a lower percentage of cost over time paid by people who actually use transit.
Yeah. Can I just interrupt there, Randall?
You certainly can.
For example.
Sure.
Like we have a new technical producer here, Noah. Took the bus here, young guy, took the bus here the other day from Nepean to Thurston Drive, where our station is down here.
Sounds like an epic journey.
Okay. Well, it shouldn't take an hour and 45 minutes, which is what it took with one transfer. An hour and 45 minutes to get to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, like during what is supposed to be a peak period for public transit. And then he said it took him longer to get home. 4 hours. 4 hours.
Oh, it's ridiculous, Mark. My son used to live in Morgan's Grant and get out anywhere to Lansdowne Park, which you think, well, okay, that's not like an exotic location to get to or something. That was an hour and a half every day.
Right.
And that was if the bus ran.
So how does freezing fares fix that?
It doesn't accomplish anything. That's the problem with it. It doesn't make transit better. It doesn't make it more useful. It feels like a gimmick in the same way that, Bob Chiarelli's, I'm going to freeze taxes until I figure out what to do plan. Another gimmick.
Okay. So who do you think is winning this thing right now?
It's really hard to tell, isn't it? Because we're not seeing much in the way of polling. It's difficult to know. I mean, obviously, Catherine McKenny is going to get substantial support. The whole progressive NDP group in the city will back her. That is not a majority group. So the question is, can Sutcliffe get enough votes to get past her? In theory, that should certainly be possible. And it depends in part on whether Bob Chiarelli attracts enough support to be a spoiler. Yeah. If he doesn't, then I think Maura Sutcliffe wins.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Hey, thank you, Randall Denley.
All right.
Yeah, great to hear from you this week. We'll speak soon. Randall Denley, read his column about the two platforms. They're in the Ottawa Citizen this week. It's 11:14. This is the Rob Snow Show, and this is City News.
If you're
Join me next time on Simply Cooking by Chef, where I'm going to show you how to make a traditional pizza and even a gluten-free one, all from scratch.
When it comes to drugs, how much freedom is too much for kids?
Drugs are out there. Will my teen feel free to say no around other kids?
I didn't live drug-free when I was younger. Can I admit that to my kids?
Drugs worry me, but how can I feel free to talk about it with my kids?
Questions about drugs and kids? Drug-Free Kids Canada.
Your visit isn't really necessary.
I'll judge for myself.
I know you're an MP, Miss McPhail, but a woman has never...
I am not leaving till I do. How can such a society be called civilized? If those appalling conditions don't change, that prison will explode!
Perhaps our lone lady member is too fragile to know what is normal in a prison.
Is this normal?
Her courage would lead to the overhaul of the entire Canadian penal system. Agnes McPhail, Canada's first woman MP.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Focus better.
Partner better.
Sleep better.
Breathe better.
Love better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Everything gets better when you get active.
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
In sports, Steve Warren is back to talk about Senators hockey, some Red Blacks football, National Football League, Toronto Blue Jays. My gosh, what a time to be a sports fan. Steve Warren. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yep, Steve Warren of the Sensation Podcast and the Steve Warren Project on all your podcasting platforms. So, we've seen some of the Senators in action. What have you thought of what you've seen of this training camp, the exhibition play? Who do you like? Who maybe not so much? Give us your impressions of it so far.
Well, I mean, it's all about evaluation of some of your lower-end talent, deciding who plays with who. They decided this week that they have so much talent up front, they're going to have 2 units on the power play rotated evenly. That gives you an idea of the offensive thrust that this team has. So that was certainly one of the storylines. You're looking at, I think that last game in Winnipeg, Tyler Mott, newcomer with the club, looks pretty good and looks like he might be ready to step in for Alex Formanson's role as a third-line left winger with Pinto and Joseph. I thought that line looked really good against Winnipeg. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ridley Gregg can do this weekend as well as he overcomes that shoulder injury that he had at the World Juniors. So he'll get some looks, and that's also a guy that might be able to fit in the Formanson role because he's also a winger along with being a centerman. And Mark Kastelik on that fourth line potentially could give Dylan Gambrell and some other guys some competition. He really, Rob, looks ready for a fourth-line role to me.
Excellent. Okay. What's ahead for exhibition action this weekend? What's on the calendar?
Well, they have the Leafs will be coming up tomorrow night, and then the Habs on Saturday night.
Back to back.
And they're basically splitting those squads up, and then it's basically Paul Bunyan time for DJ Smith and his staff, and of course Pierre Dorion in on that as well. That's when they're going to get into some major cuts, because after that they've got 3 preseason games remaining, and with the terrible start they've had in each of the last 2 years, they're really going to use those 3 games as a dress rehearsal, making sure that the choreography of their D-zone coverage and their forecheck are all down pat, and so everybody's as best they can on the same page opening night so they can be at their best early and try and avoid those terrible starts they had the last 2 years.
Okay, so let's talk about our hated rivals, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Habs. The Leafs expected to be a top-tier team again. I would assume the Habs kind of in a rebuilding mode. What do you think of the Leafs, Steve? I know you don't think too much of them, but what should we expect from the Leafs this year?
Well, my hatred level, so my immediate answer to the question is, well, the Leafs suck, Rob, and that's the end of the discussion. But if you want to go more objective, they've overhauled their goaltending. That was the biggest thing, I think, for them. They bring in Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov, and honestly, I think that's pretty ambitious, maybe even delusional to think those 2 guys can stabilize your goaltending, but that's how it is in the cap world. You spend all your money on your forwards and a couple of defensemen, well, you have to MacGyver things somewhere else with twine and bubble gum in areas like your goaltending. So I think that's going to be a problem area for them, and probably they won't be as good as last year, but they're still comfortably in the playoffs. They've still got, lots of talent up front. They lost John Tavares. He could be gone for a lot of October with an injury.
Okay.
But they got so much up front, and their D is not bad with Riley and Giordano and Muzzin and Brody. So they're a playoff team still, but I don't think they'll be as good as last year.
Okay. And the Habs?
The Habs, on the other hand, are going to be just as bad as you hope they'll be, Rob.
All right. Excellent news.
I think you've got they've made some additions. I mean, I like the attempts to these reclamation projects and Sean Monahan and Kirby Doc. Yevgeny Dadonov, who Sens fans know well here.
Yes. Yep.
But they're going to be bad. Not as bad as last year. I mean, they're dead last, so they can't be worse. And if you're thinking about the rivalry between the Sens and the Habs, they have one guy. Obviously, Brendan Gallagher always stokes that rivalry, but they've got this new kid who's vying for a spot on the blue line named Arbor Xhekaj. He is an absolute physical beast, and he's playing very well on the blue line, but he can fight. He can run you over. And he was tough. I mean, he was running around in that game against the Sens in the preseason. So there's one guy that could give Brendan Gallagher a hand at stoking the Sens-Habs rivalry.
All right. So it's going to be a good weekend for sports for sure with the Leafs and the Habs. So that's great. Let's turn our attention to the Red Blacks. Lose at home again and look awful, like just awful, terrible loss against the Argonauts. And you know what? I'm just thinking about the fans. The fans have really turned out for this team, even though they've been so brutal, just brutal. And this is the 3rd season in a row that they've been brutal. And I mean going back to pre-COVID. I'm just wondering how much longer fans are going to sit through this. What are fans going to sit through this when it's +3 and snowing? I don't know why they would. And how the heck Paul LaPolice still has a job as the head coach of this team, it's just beyond me. The play calling has been just brutal. So that's my little rant. Do you want to rant about the Red Blacks? Because, Ottawa CFL fans are pretty diehard, and I think they just deserve so much more than what they've gotten from this club.
Well, I'd agree. I mean, it's still a party atmosphere. I think people still like being at the games, but it's been a calendar year now since they've gone home with a W. You gotta be better than that. And I mean, I've never been wronger, I think, than anything than I was about the Red Blacks and looking at the season ahead. You lose your quarterback in the CFL or the NFL, you're pretty much screwed. Let's be honest. But this team has gotten worse. Instead of we had the setback of losing Masoli, our starter, the crown jewel of their free agent signings. Okay, that was in week 4.
Yeah.
Now let's see what we can make out of this. And the team is gradually getting worse. And so that to me speaks volumes. I mean, I'm with you. I'm honestly shocked that that we got to the next morning without a coaching change. I'll be shocked again. I think I've mentioned this on the show if LaPolice is their head coach next year. Like, for example, I thought it was, you look at the end of the first half and that whole business of taking a knee and then calling a timeout and then taking a knee again.
What is that? Right? Yeah.
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
But really disorganized looking. But I thought it was insane to go away from Arbuckle after the first half to go to Caleb Evans. Like, that guy had lots of looks last year and this year. Arbuckle was 2-1 when he was benched. I'm not saying he's an MVP candidate, but he gave you your best chance of winning football games, and you benched him. And then you went back to him after Evans got beat up in the second half.
Okay. That's a pretty good rant by you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You think of when they first came back into the league and how good they were, and it just defied all expectations, and, go to the Grey Cup finals and win a Grey Cup, and for them to struggle the way they have these last 3 seasons, and especially at home, where the stadium has a nice atmosphere to it, and it's a lot of fun to go to the football game again. It'd be nice if the team would provide some on-field fun. All the fun is off the field. There hasn't been much to cheer for the fans. Now, Blue Jays. Off to the postseason, I would suspect. And what do they have to do to have some success in the postseason? How do you see this shaping out for the Blue Jays here, Steve?
Well, I think the first step is these last few games. I think they have 6 to go. They're going to get the Red Sox for 3 and then Baltimore for 3. They're off today. And what you want is that first wild card spot. What a massive advantage that is this year. That whole one-game showdown we used to see is completely done. And if the Jays get that best wild card role, which would put them in the number 4 seed, that means that they get to host the second best wild card team in a best of 3 now. Again, the one-game showdown is done, and it's an odd format in that in this best of 3, all the games would be in Toronto if they finish as the best wild card team. So that's an absolutely huge element to get through and then take on either the Yankees or the Astros, who would get a bye in that first round. So that's pretty much, I think, that's paramount to get that. And right now you've got right in front of you. They can clinch today, in fact, if the Red Sox beat the Orioles. Kind of a boring way to do it because you have an off day, but if the Red Sox beat the Orioles, the Jays are officially in.
Okay, they'll take it. Meantime, it is coming up to week 4 in the National Football League. Somehow, miraculously, my team, the Denver Broncos, is 2-1 thanks to an 11-10 victory. 11-10 for that is only the second time in National Football League history that a team won by that score, 11-10. But
you'll take it.
You'll take it. They look bad doing it, but it's not how, it's how many. So Broncos are 2-1. Let's speak no more of it. Must watch NFL this weekend. What's on your list?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. The Sunday nighter this week is the one to watch. You've got two exciting teams in Kansas City and Tampa Bay, both off to good starts at 2-1. And I always love the quarterback matchup, and I think most fans do with Pat Mahomes against Tom Brady.
Yep.
I think that's your game to circle. And I've also got Buffalo at Baltimore for the 1:00 game. That's, for the same reasons. Those are two exciting teams because they have two very exciting quarterbacks in Allen and Jackson.
Yeah, I would add, I would agree with both of those, Steve, and I would just add one more, and that would be, I believe it is this weekend, Bengals and Dolphins. Bengals and Dolphins.
That's tonight, actually.
That's tonight. There you go. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll stay up late tonight and watch that. That'll be good. All right. Thank you, Steve Ward.
Thanks,
For
Rob.
people who want to listen to your podcast, where would you direct them, sir?
You can listen to the Daily Steve Warren Project. It's at stevewproject.com. And we also have a Sens exclusive one, the Sens Nation podcast, and it goes off twice a week. You can check that out at sensnationhockey.com.
Thank you, Steve Warren. Speak soon. Coming up after the news, it's The World with Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton. This is The Rob Snow Show on City News.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa, we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
We're in infinity.
Hi, my name is Isabel. I'll be performing as part of Encore Ottawa 3. I hope you can tune in and catch it on Rogers TV.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Traffic and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Thursday, September 29th. Good morning. I'm Alex Gouge. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, partly cloudy skies at 10 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Senator Vern White is leaving the Red Chamber after more than a decade. The former Ottawa Police Chief's office confirmed to City News that he will be resigning from the Senate effective this Sunday. White was appointed to the Senate in February 2012 by then Prime Minister Stephen Harper. The Naples Pier, a top tourist destination, has been destroyed by Hurricane Ian. The storm sent waves of at least 6 meters over the historic structure, reducing it to practically nothing. Administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Deanne Criswell, tells CBS News that the agency has put together a large search and rescue capability that will be combing areas of southwest Florida where people may be trapped. After dropping to tropical storm levels, Ian is projected to regain its strength as it heads towards South Carolina. Canada's economy grew slightly in July, with the latest reading on real gross domestic product coming in higher than expected. Stats Canada says the economy grew by 0.1% in July, outperforming its preliminary estimate that pointed to a contraction by the same amount. The federal agency says growth in goods-producing industries is partially offset by a decline in the services-producing industries. As the Bank of Canada continues to raise interest rates to tame inflation, an economic slowdown is widely anticipated. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Alex Gouge. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Time again for another look at big international news stories. Try to make sense of this complicated world of ours. And helping us do that every week is Professor Elliot Tepper. He's with the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs, Distinguished Fellow at the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University here in Ottawa. Good morning,
Good
Professor.
morning, Rob.
Yeah, welcome back. Let's talk about this mobilization effort that is underway in Russia. I know it's hard to know what's true, what's propaganda, but there's all kinds of videos on social media about these call-ups, I guess, for lack of a better term, reservists. You're not going to be well-equipped, very little training. It seems like, they're largely going to be on their own, almost doomed to become cannon fire. Would that be a fair description in your opinion?
It's fair for them to think that.
Fair for them to think that, okay.
The track record so far is that some of Russia's best troops actually were sent on what I'm calling Plan A, an expeditionary force, very well armed, to come in from three sides into Ukraine and to have a one-week war, eliminate Ukraine as a state, integrate it into Mother Russia, put in puppet leaders there, and the war would be over. But as you know, Plan A didn't work. Plan B was, that isn't what we had in mind. We're going to consolidate ourselves in the Donbass, where we've already got some presence. We're going to take over the rest of it because we have to protect ethnic Russians. And that's really what we're after, is protecting ethnic Russians from the neo-Nazis. That has now been dashed. So Plan C is where we are now, and it's a totally different ballgame now. Just to give the big takeaway at the top, I think we're now in a situation, since you mentioned the mobilization, that Russia is mobilizing to go to war, and they're calling up the troops, and they are threatening that if you do anything to stop this, you will face a nuclear response. So this is a different world than we were just a couple of weeks ago. The question of this mobilization is, I think, what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. They don't seem like soldiers. That's all. That's my point.
Right. The original announcement was very carefully crafted. It was a very short speech, unusually short speech by Mr. Putin. He addressed the nation saying, we are going to do something, I'm paraphrasing, we're going to do something we haven't done since the Second World War. We are going to call up troops. We are having a mobilization, but don't worry about it because we're only going to call 300,000 people. They're all going to be people who have served. They're in the military reserves. They have training, and we're just going to give them additional training, and then they can be sent to carry on the glorious war. What we're seeing now is a few things. First of all, that wasn't true. There's no published cap on the number of people being called up. So instead of 300,000, it could be up to 1 million is the current speculation, because Russia's a vast country, and it fought off Napoleon, it fought off Hitler, and now they're saying we're going to war, and that's probably my biggest message of this conversation. But what this shows is that the war is now being brought home for the very first time to the general ethnic Russian population of Russia, that is Putin's own power base. We talked about this last week and previous weeks, that there's a pushback now. The councilors, municipal councilors in St. Petersburg, his home base and his home and his base, and in Moscow, before all the call-up, before all this happened, said they were passing resolutions saying, we want you, Mr. Putin, to quit. And one of them even called him a traitor. And they're now circulating a petition to other councilors. I think the police visited them the next day. So what we're seeing right now is that the war is suddenly being brought home in a way that it had not been brought home before this mobilization, because a lot of the fighting troops were brought from the minority areas from Chechnya and Dagestan in particular, by the Wagner Group, the Wagner Group, who was these paramilitaries connected to the Russian state. They were brought in, and they in turn were going to prisons and emptying out prisons, 50,000 apparently there. Brought, well, you come and fight for 6 months and you'll have your freedom, assuming you survive. So there's a desperate need for troops now as a result of the success of the Ukrainian forces. The war is now being brought home. There's riots in effect. There's people fleeing. There's riots all across. There's a map showing you, Rob, where the pushback is coming from. It's not coming just from the Far East. It's now clustered around the Russian heartland. So there's a major pushback now, and there's a lot of stories, of course, about the nature of the people being called up, disabled, seniors. And one disturbing report was, well, if you take to the streets and protest, keeping in mind we passed a law just before we started all this, saying if you protest this war, you can go to jail for 15 years. That's a big, big punishment. But people are going anyway to the streets. And one report was, if you get arrested for disputing this war, for opposing this war, you will be immediately drafted.
Wow. Okay. All right. Moving on from there to these referendums, which last week you echoed the word sham.
Oh, yes.
They're going to formally announce we've won these elections and we're annexing these parts of Ukraine. Your thoughts on that development, please, Professor?
Again, if you look carefully at what's going on, beyond obviously the biggest message here is they plan to say those areas in which we claim we have control. It's not even clear. They said they're going to take over all of the Donbass and the two provinces there, and they're claiming all of those, but in fact they don't control all those. So they're claiming territory they're not. They're going to annex territories they don't actually control. What this was, if you look carefully at the announcement originally, is that this does two very important things in terms of conducting a war. The first is conscripts under Russian law can't be sent outside of Russia, and now you have a lot of new Russian territory, so all these new troops can be now sent to these sham statelets that are being created. And even more ominously, the Russian nuclear doctrine states something like to the effect, they don't put it this way, we will never use the bomb first. A lot of countries say that out loud. Russia doesn't. No first use. But if there's an existential threat to the existence of the state, then we feel justified in using nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. Now they've got a lot more territory, which in fact is in the middle of a war zone, and they are going to be attacked. So it lays the groundwork for the possibility of the introduction of nuclear weapons into this conflict.
Okay. Just before we stop, do you have anything to add?
Oh, there's lots more on this. The hardliners seem to have won out in all of this. The military, that was basically in his announcement. The political people said, "Don't do it; you'll pay a cost." And he said, "I have to do it." So the hardliners seem to be now driving this war. And if Mr. Putin is deposed, as some people think might happen out of all this, everybody thinks, well, maybe it'll be a reformer who comes in, but it equally could be, and maybe more likely, one of those hardliners, and it could be an even worse situation. So our state, we're in a different place now than we were a few weeks ago.
Right.
It's not a good place to be.
Okay, so if we're in a different space, a different place, what has been said? What sort of response would you expect from the West, from NATO, for example,
yes,
from us here in Canada, for example?
We have some direct inkling of that. We've just found out what we long suspected. In fact, there's been back-channel communications between the Biden administration, the West, and Russia, all up and down the communication channels that are reachable for months, telling Russia, do not do this. Do not introduce nuclear weapons. Don't do it. If you do that, there will be a decisive and catastrophic response. Now we're in a situation where a lot of people in the West are saying, oh, there's a big bluff going on. He's not actually going to use nuclear weapons. He knows there'd be a huge response. And Russia is saying, oh, yeah? Well, if we used tactical nuclear weapons on Ukrainian territory, would the West really come in? We don't think so. This is a very dangerous game of chicken that we're playing right now.
Okay, we're going to stop here. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's going on with two recent elections. I want to talk about Sweden and most recently Italy, with big gains by right-wing parties. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, we invite you to join us for a special edition of the show as we celebrate Truth and Reconciliation Day here at Rogers TV. Our guest will join us to share some powerful stories and, of course, remind us of why we should become allies with Indigenous people across Canada and, of course, around the world. They will share their Indigenous culture and some fabulous food, as well as some wonderful events you can partake in.
I would like to see politicians and government overall, especially locals, start to support local business more, because we've had so many businesses that have shut down, and I would like to see local business grow and politicians give more, whether that's a financial contribution or some other layer of support, but something to encourage them to keep business going.
$20. And Maggie, Mrs. Calabash, come into my kitchen. A quick mayonnaise, egg yolks, garlic, Dijon mustard, lemon juice, olive oil, immersion blender. Go down, come up. Voila, mayonnaise. Boom, 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 boom. $20. $20. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counsellor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hi guys, my name is Vi and I'm a part of Encore Ottawa 3. My set at the Meridian Theatre is coming out this week and I hope you tune in.
It's been 2 years later.
Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Back with Professor Elliot Tepper, International Affairs Professor, Carleton University. Fascinating developments in recent elections in Sweden and in Italy. I don't know if one has anything to do with the other, if they have anything in common other than the outcome, if it's part of a bigger trend. But Sweden's right-wing parties made huge gains. I mean, parties that were really nowhere in the political grand scheme of things made huge gains in the country's recent election. And now it's all over the news about Italy's election, with a hard right turn with the election of Giorgia Meloni, leader of the Brothers of Italy. What do you make of these election outcomes, Professor?
And her party also came from 1 or 2% last time to where in coalition she can now take power and become the first woman leader of Italy ever. So is this a hard right turn for Sweden than Italy? Each one, of course, has their own peculiar, distinctiveness. There's conditions in each country that led to particular election outcomes, but it's very tempting to stand back and say, I've been talking about this for quite a while, the populist wave, which seemed to be threatening all across Europe, and it was going to topple country after country, state after state. But then that populist wave seemed to have crested and be pushed back. Now it seems to be cresting once again. Is this a hard turn to the right, you're asking?
Yes.
I think these are driven by some of the same concerns. I think the overwhelming one, which we don't pay enough attention to, is inequality, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But migration in this case is a big trigger, because each of these states have had influx of people that are newcomers to them, particularly in Sweden, and neither of these states are particularly good at what we in Canada would call multiculturalism. And they're not very good at integration of newcomers. Mobilization by social media is a factor. Now suddenly you can spread all kinds of things. And we should not underestimate influence operations. There's foreign or external forces that just want to stir the pot. And yes, I am talking about Russia in this case,
right?
Because certainly in the Italian case, the person you're speaking about, Meloni, the prime minister designate, is in coalition with two other parties that are connected, have been connected to Mr. Putin visibly and openly. So the possibility that there's influence operations underway is there. Berlusconi, the bunga colorful guy, is personal friend of Mr. Putin. They exchange expensive gifts and so forth. So what does all this add up to? As a trend, these forces, inequality, I think, being one of the most underestimated parts of it, and migration, mobilization, social media influence operations, I think that is affecting the politics of the states. It makes the move to the left. But keep in mind, we're talking about Europe. There's a counter set of elections going on right now in recent times where the left is coming to the power in state after state, the six biggest economies in Latin America. So you have, you start with Mexico, our closest neighbor, but Chile and Peru and Brazil's having an election, and Lula's, looks like he's coming back to power as socialist there. So we have a pink wave there, as they would call it. Right. So what we have, I think, is sweeping the world right now in various ways is populism of the right and
left.
Of the left.
And left, yeah.
And left.
Right.
And so it's populism, but populism isn't the purview of only one side or the other. And I think it's based underlying and connecting them on the notion that the system isn't working for us. It's working against us. And therefore, you can mobilize us against this elite. The global recession of 2008, I think, really did create an indentation in history in that sense. Unbridled greed, no one pays the cost, inequality goes up. And I think inequality is one of those hidden factors underlying a great deal of global politics today.
Yeah, maybe even some a generational divide in that too. Whether it's baby boomers or Gen Xers and millennials who feel that they haven't had the full benefit of the opportunities and the full benefit of the work that they've put into their lives, Professor. I think there may be a certain element there as well. Would you agree with that?
And the populism of the left in Latin America, for example, is probably quite different than an earlier wave. They tend to go through cycles, left and right, also dictatorships and democracies. So there's cycles in the politics of Latin America. Okay. But this new generation that's coming to power is dealing with different issues, I think, than some of the earlier issues that their predecessors rode to power on. Okay. Yes, generational change and generational impact is certainly an additional factor, but some of that is also tied to the role of social media.
Okay. I'm just going to interrupt our conversation because I've just received a text from my father on Cape Breton Island. His power just came on after
good.
after 6 days. So,
what?
After Fiona. So
right. Well, good.
From 2:30 in the morning Saturday until 11 o'clock today without power, finally back on. So there you go. All right, that's interesting. Okay.
It is. And is this climate change, and that's a different conversation.
Last week, we asked you, what do you think is going to happen in Iran? And you said they're going, the authorities are going to brutally suppress this uprising. And is that still your belief?
Well, it's happening.
Yeah.
It's whether they can suppress it is the question.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that this uprising, the hijab uprising, is the latest in a long string of uprisings around various causes. 2009 was the Green Movement, and it was one of those color revolutions that terrifies Russia and China. We talked about that. Dictators everywhere worry about popular uprisings overthrowing the government. 2019, there was a big one based on economic discontent. 2009 was a stolen election. What's interesting about this, to me, Rob, is that it is spreading more widely.
Okay.
And it's no longer among Kurdish women leading the way. It's now women across the country, but also men are joining in. You mentioned generations. It's multi-generational as well. And the issues are starting to broaden out. It started out with, the impunity. The impunity of one branch of this regime behaving as they traditionally do. But it's now broadening out to remember the corruption, remember their foreign adventurism, remember their impunity in all kinds of ways, and do we really want a theocracy after 42 years in power? The uprising is now crystallizing more and more to be overtly anti-regime, get rid of the regime, let's overthrow the regime. And the questions being raised by people I know and respect here, is this an uprising or is it a revolution? And that's still an open question at the moment.
Okay. We have 2 minutes left, which I don't know if that will do this justice, but it was interesting for a day or two there because there were rumors circulating on social media that there was a coup in China, and people were like, where's Xi? What's going on? He's under house arrest. He later dispelled those rumors because he was seen in Beijing on Tuesday at some kind of exhibition.
Right.
Why would those rumors begin circulating in the first place, I guess?
I think for more than one reason. He's coming up to his re-election for unprecedented for a third term, which really means president for life, and that's coming up in October. If there's ever going to be a power struggle, now is the moment before that second party Congress, 20th Party Congress in the middle of October. So that sets the stage. But another factor is nobody really knows what's going on in the top. So in the absence of any transparency, rumor can run wild, and that's what happened in this case. It's a closed dictatorial system with a ruler who's consolidated power, leading to rumors that maybe there's going to be an attempt to stop him, and those rumors have now been dispelled.
Professor Tepper, until next week, sir, thank you so much again for your insight. It's greatly appreciated. From the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs, where he is Distinguished Senior Fellow. That is Professor Elliot Tepper. Sam LaPrade is coming up next. I will be back on Monday with another Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays at 9 on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
The Ottawa Board of Trade congratulates all the candidates.